Brilliant, brilliant. So what do you see when you come on, Ryan? Before I open it this side, you just see nothing, right?
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Right, right.
Oh, I
Well,
see.
yeah, I just put on the camera now. I'm just off to the side here in my other office. This is my main office. Normally I go to the sub office over here.
For some reason, my Zoom thing is just, it's not opening back up to the full screen.
Oh, that's kind of weird. I never have it on full screen anyway because I've got other stuff that I need to click on behind. So
Hey, I'm going to leave it and I'm going to rejoin.
okay, yeah, that always helps. Yeah, good, good. Very good indeed. Very good indeed. All right, let's go back here then.
So weird. Do you see me as joined twice?
Let's see. Yes, I do. I do.
That's so weird.
Yeah, that is interesting. Huh.
I'm on there 2 times.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say it probably will sort itself. Just a little bit of delay.
Yeah.
Very good indeed. Very good indeed. All right. Give me 1 second there.
Oh, no problem. I'm eating. So
Yeah, just chill today, which is nice. And it's good to be chill. Thinking about stuff, man. Thinking about stuff. Did you see Rachel's post in the group? Ah, just beautiful, magical, long post. Just excellent. So,
Oh, good.
yeah. Just a takeaway on herself, where she's at, a self-reflection on her self-discovery. And that's huge, it's exactly what the whole program is all about. And the connectivity to the group, it's for this purpose that the group is created, exactly for that. And
Right.
also, just she said in the end of it, she says, she wasn't sure, about posting it, and it's kind of, rough and so on, or it didn't come out or whatever, she's uncertain about the expression. But that's also the purpose. It's that in that act of expressing what she's doing, you get that that comfort, and every time you do it, you get a little bit more clear and more fluid, and it becomes easier. It's just you.
Well, you can't. It's like, yeah, you can't get good at expressing unless you do it.
Exactly. So we have to just practice that little bit, and through that practice, it's just massive,
Mm-hmm.
So that just and just also the putting it out there. Not only do you get that profound, deep, massive perspective on yourself, which obviously as you read, you can just hear how it's getting there. And also the connectivity, she was listening to music, and the music lyrics like really like stimulated and connected to her, and just it brought up stuff in her. And then she shared where she's at, and that's just huge, just massive. So it's that perspective shifting. But the more we do it, the better it gets. It's just magical, man. Just magical. I love it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's why I told Rachel yesterday. I said, even if you're like scared to do it, you just need to like do it.
Why?
Because I used to be like that.
Why?
I think everybody is.
Right. It's just we aren't sure, and our society unfortunately doesn't make space for people that are unsure, that are kind of finding their feet. And that's something that needs to shift. That's why, like from the Nobilia perspective, it's, communication is a haphazard business. And we need to understand that, especially when you're expressing something that's new, that's uncertain, that you're exploring. We need to make space for that exploration, that kind of feeling it out, which is like, okay, you say it and no, that's not quite right. Okay, it's not quite what I mean. Let me say it again. And then you're figuring it out as you go along, and you're doing so out loud. that is massively, massively, massively huge.
Right.
It's so unbelievably huge when we are able to do that. It's profound. Not only that, but there's further implications. You know, like everything, there's a big more.
Mhm.
When we do that, we not only create space, or for others to do that. We create space for ourselves to do that. But we also, which is implied, obviously. So the more you do that, you say, oh, it's okay for me to do it. But we also learn to listen in a different way, and that's huge. We learn to listen to what people mean and not to what they say. And then we also come to realize that for the most part, people just say something, and because they don't feel like they have the space to keep exploring and keep kind of figuring it out and keep adjusting it till they get. So in other words, they don't feel like it's okay for them to start off inaccurate and then to adjust it and, say, no, that wasn't, and keep amending it as they go along. So they just say it the first part and they just kind of leave it there, knowing it's not quite right, but they just leave it. And that's no good. So we learn to hear and we learn to listen past that. And we learn to hear and listen to what people really mean and what they were trying to say. And then we can, become part of their process of self-exploration through listening. And, to say, let me see, if I understand you correctly, this is what it comes out to me. Now, I'm not saying what the inaccurate expression was or the incomplete expression. I'm saying what I believe the fullness of the expression was. Now, it may or may not be accurate or not, doesn't matter. But then it provides them opportunity to say, no, actually it was this, or yeah, and then it's like, okay. And so you get to have that process of conversation, of updating and upgrading things. And that is so unbelievably huge. It's just like, man, it's beyond huge, right?
Right. I agree. I mean,
somebody joined and I can't see who it is because I was on the Facebook window, which is covering the Zoom window. Bina! Brilliant.
Hi, sir.
Brilliant.
All right.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Hello, Bina. Hello, hello, hello. We're talking about expressing ourselves, and Rachel made a fabulous post. This is, I was just saying to Ryan, she's unsure about posting the post, but that's exactly the reason for the group. It's posts of that nature, that deep takeaway on yourself and that expressing of yourself, even though it does feels a bit clumsy or awkward or not clear at first. The more we do it, the more we get to the perfection through imperfection. So it's about understanding that communication is a haphazard business. That's just the nature of it. It's a reason that people say, oh, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, sometimes even more than that. So, because when we're expressing something in words, typically we are just connecting to little bitty parts of it, not to the whole totality. It's very difficult to create the totality, like a picture can. It can present a totality that if you describe in words takes a long time. So we're always in that spot of coming at things from very limited conceptuality. And that's important to understand about communication. That's why it's haphazard. So the expression of self allows us to create better pictures with our words, more fluid and clear, because it connects us to what we really mean. And in order to know what we really mean, we have to have that clarity of self and the clarity of intent as well, of course. So it's very powerful, the whole deal. And then also I was saying to Ryan, the more we do that, as in terms of our community, like in the group and our discussions, and make space for that a communication which isn't fluid, which is a bit broken, which is exploring, which is not quite accurate. So you say it and then it's like, I'm not quite sure if that's exactly what I mean. Let me try that again. When we make space for that, it is unbelievably profound in all of its consequence. And also, Bina, this is a huge point. That's where you came in. I was saying, it now not only creates space for us to express in that way, to explore out loud, which is fantastically profound for getting stuff sorted in us. It also gets us into the habit of making space to listen like that. And when we do, we create space for people to share themselves exploring that way. And our listening now can add to that. Like, okay, let's say they don't do it multiple times, just say it at first and kind of leave it there. Then you come back and you do a little takeaway and say, and let me see if I understand you correctly. And then you share that, which may or may not be accurate. Then they can come back and say, yeah, that's right. Or no, this is actually what I meant. And now we further that process. And that's the collaborative listening and sharing and discussing process. That's why it's a discussion group, for exactly that reason. So it's very powerful, very exciting.
Sir, I'm not getting about listening part. Yes, self-expression, yes. But what about listening? I'm not getting. Kindly just rephrase it.
Okay, so when we express ourselves, and yes, with this in this way, express ourselves, knowing that communication or expression is a bit of a haphazard business. It's not fluid. It's not smooth. It's kind of awkward. We can also do the same with listening, with that understanding that communication is a bit haphazard and awkward and sticky. So when we listen with that in mind, we now listen, and in our listening, we create space for the other person to not just say the first thing that comes and then they just kind of leave it there, knowing it's not quite accurate. That's how we typically communicate. We say something and we know it's not 100% accurate, but we don't want to kind of feel like we're boring people or being annoying by stumbling and struggling. But when we listen with the patience and tolerance and the joy to say, man, this is cool. You're figuring it out loud. And now I'm a part of that process. So I listen with the eagerness to hear you figure it out. That's an intent that you can pick up from somebody when they listen that way. You can see that they are now quite happy to hear you figuring it out as you go along. That's phenomenally huge, isn't it?
Yes.
And also it shifts us internally, because now we are listening not to what they say, but to what they mean. And that's huge. That is the big difference right there. That is the profound big shift in the underlying intent. When we make that shift from hey, hello, Mary. I'll catch you up in a second, Mary. When we make that shift from listening to what people say to what they mean, it's huge. It's huge because it implies many things. First of all, of course, coming from the position of impeccability, if I'm listening to what you mean, it's not I'm making an assumption about it. No, I'm listening to try and figure out what you mean, which means I can't just take it for granted that I know what you mean. I have to check my assumptions. I have to check my perceptions. This leads to discussion, right? And that's real listening. Because when I really, really listen to you, I come back and I say, like you just did now, Abina, when you said, you know what, I'm not sure I understand what you mean when it comes to expressing, but not to listening. So that's what you did. You gave a takeaway about what you thought I meant, and you provided opportunity for me to expand, to explore, to elaborate, to say further, right? And that is huge. That's really listening, because now I actually know for a fact that you were really listening because you gave me feedback. So not only when we listen to what people mean and then we share what we believe they mean, it's not just for that greater clarity and the opportunity to explore and to elaborate and to add more. Through that feedback, typically, like you say, I'm not sure if I understood you correctly. This is kind of what I understood. And you give your idea more or less of what it is. Doesn't matter whether that's accurate or not. It's stimulation. And then that person comes, yes, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Or no, they say, no, not quite, but more or less. And then they elaborate again. Now you're providing an opportunity for re-expression. And very seldom do we say exactly the same thing twice. Pretty much never. So every time we get to re-express, we also get to expand and elaborate. And of course, we come at it from a different angle, right? So we always get to that greater connectivity through this process of this interactive discussion and interaction. It's just unbelievably huge. So to come back to re-elaborate and say, hey, Pierce, how you doing, man? So to come back to this point, just to catch Mary up also, I was starting to talk about Rachel's fabulous post that she just made. And it's very similar to your magical post that I had up as the announcement there. where you guys expressed yourselves where you at, and you put it out there, put it out there. Just that's it. You put it out there. And I was saying, that's the purpose and the reason for the group. It's exactly why it's there. And also when we do that, like Rachel expressed somewhat in her post, that, didn't come out quite right, or, it's just that little bit of awkwardness there. But that's exactly what we were talking about the other day. And she's actually putting it into action. So when we express ourselves, at first it's not always smooth and clear. But of course, the more we do, the more fluid it becomes. But then I went on to say, Mary, and that's where you came in, to say that it's not just the expressing and being, learning to express ourselves and to work through kind of not so smooth expression. We also need to listen in that same way, because then we start to really, really listen, and we shift from listening to what people say to listening to what they mean. And when we listen to what people mean, we get to hear them. I mean, capital H, hear them. And that's huge. And through that checking, of course, we can't just be arrogant to assume we know what they mean. We have to check it, because that's impeccability. It always forces us to check to see if we did get what they mean. And that checking, that's the takeaway. So that's exactly what the takeaway sessions are for the way of impeccability. There's the material that's out there, the content, and then you go through that content and you come with your takeaway to say, hey, let me see if I understood this correctly. That's the power. Because not only do we check our comprehension and our understanding and our abilities to perceive, our abilities to shift perspective, our abilities to get inside and understand others, all sorts of magic that comes from that. But we get that ability to discuss then and to share and to re-express, and then just all sorts of magic. So that's the whole point of the takeaways. So when we really learn to hear and listen to others, we give them takeaways. We have to give them a takeaway on what they say, because otherwise we will just be assuming. And that's what we want to get out of. And that's the power of the habit. And Bina asked about the listening part. Bina, that's the power of the listening. Because listening, in capital L listening and really hearing, it's not static. It's not one way. In order for me to truly listen to you, I have to give you feedback on what you said. Yes?
Yes.
Otherwise, how do I know what I've heard is valid, is accurate or not? I have to check it, in other words. And that's the power of listening. It's in the discussion that comes, because when we share a perspective back, no matter how accurate it is, it's stimulating and it leads to more. And that's where we get that collaboration. Not only is it, typically we need to refine our points and fine tune them and expand on them and, get to the more that's connected, but it's that process of collaboration that leads to the greater more. That's it. So discussion has a magic to it, a real powerful, incredible collaborative magic of, 1 + 1 = more. So listening then becomes a huge deal. But in this particular context, it's that making space for awkwardness, for inaccurate expression, for just the haphazardness of communication. So therefore, we develop an interactive system where we say, hey, it's cool that you express it inaccurately to start. That's what we want, because now we see the entire process. We see we are building something. We are not sharing conclusions. We are building a structure, right?
Yes.
And that is unbelievable. That's a whole change of discussion, because now the discussion is about understanding and building and creating, rather than me just sharing an opinion and you say, oh, I agree or I disagree. What the hell does that help? If you just say, oh, I agree. Okay, well, big bloody deal. I already knew it beforehand. So what does your agreement do for me? Absolutely bugger all. And okay, disagreement might help somewhat because we get to discuss it somewhat. But, if it just ends up in the end, well, I disagree and you agree. I say, okay, you disagree. All right, so what? Too bad. It doesn't get us anywhere. But when we go to understanding, we get to that more. So this is the power. And to understand that our discussions are typically, especially our discussions in connection of the takeaway sessions and the Wave Impeccability program, our discussions are connected to building new understandings, new insights, new awarenesses, new perceptions, new perspectives. That's what it's all about, that building of newness, of more. In other words, when we discuss stuff and when we share and when we kind of explore and struggle through the haphazardness, we get to come from all these different squares and we get to create that bigger whole picture and see the connectedness of everything, yeah?
Yes.
And it's that connectedness which has been transformative, right, Bina?
Say it again.
I was saying, for you personally, it seems to me, and also with Donna, that for you guys, that connectedness, to see the connectedness of everything, you've always known it to be there, but to really, really start to get that connectedness more powerfully, that's been a huge deal, right? At first, that it was like a lot of stuff coming in and it wasn't all connected. And then as we proceeded, it started to connect. And that's like when the blossoming came, yeah?
Exactly. As I shared before, like my mind was like a warehouse which stored randomly a lot of stuff in that, and no sequence, no order, nothing at all, nothing to make sense. But when I start doing this course, in the beginning, it was overwhelming for me. It was too overwhelming. I was feeling, I don't know, some kind of a depression also.
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on? Am I too much into these things? How am I gonna express myself? Because I need to hold myself and I need to understand what's going on. And there are a lot of things. So it was overwhelming, and somehow I was feeling irritated in the beginning and disturbed and depressed also. But the only thing which was just making me glued to this thing is that no matter how overwhelming it is, no matter how depressing it is getting, but it is something I need to do now, because I can't undo that. I can't just erase it from my mind. Once I have this idea, it is here. So either I have to just go as much as I can forward, or just stuck here with the awareness that, okay, there is more, but I'm not getting it. So it was like no way of going back to that stupid self. No. And when it starts, after that, it starts making connections. And no, oh my God, it is huge. It is, of course, it is still huge.
Yes.
And I can expect more, of course.
Exactly. It just gets more all the time. It's the hugeness at first, though. But once we start to realize how it's all connected, and we're really just kind of speaking about the same thing all the time. So, then it gets really exciting because, even though you're talking about the same thing pretty much all the time, there's so many infinite varieties of it. It's just magical and just really, really exciting. So, very cool.
Because it is what it is. I just can't made up things for that, because this is actually what happened to me. So it is real. So it will be same every single time when I will share something.
Right. And it's when we start to realize that it's us that we're talking about. All of this stuff, we're talking about our real self, what we really are. And now we're exploring ourselves through this discussion. That's the magical thing. And that's also the listening. When we really, really listen, we're listening to ourselves.
Exactly. And when first time you read that chapter from the manipulative and narcissist and all these things, the book, it was the first time I realized, and I was like, oh God, I was like dumbstruck that, this is something what I was also doing in my life. Yes. And I shared that. Okay, I shared that. Oh yes, I'm feeling embarrassed, but I'm also laughing at myself because I was also doing these things.
Yeah.
So the awareness.
Yes.
Sometimes depressing, sometimes just funny. The realization is funny.
Right.
Oh, I was also like that. Oh my God. Okay,
Yes,
I
yes.
will not be again, but yes,
Right,
I was. I
right.
have to accept.
Now, I don't know if we put it into the book, but I did say it as a caution. We did somewhat to say, it's important to understand that the learning and the self improvement part of the book, because that's really what it's written as. The aim of it. It's there um, in the book, and it's geared towards that. However, what you just said in terms of seeing yourself in the book, it's to
Yes.
understand very clearly that you are seeing the subtle, the nuanced in yourself through the awareness that's brought about by the excess. This is a very, very important and powerful understanding, because otherwise you're going to identify with it. And yes, it's similar, and you see it in yourself, but you don't have it in the excess that the book is talking about. We use the excess to shed light on the nuance, on the subtle, because otherwise it's difficult to see that. And that's the point. It's very important to understand this, Bina. It's very, very, very important. Otherwise, like some of my friends said, "Oh my God, you wrote the book about me." No, I did not. Or Olivia, we didn't. We didn't. It's not about you. you know Stephanie, right, Mary?
Yeah.
You're Stephanie's friend, right? That Stephanie was
Yeah.
one of them who said that. I mean, she really, really, really thought it was about her. And she kind of
That'd
freaked
be
out.
Steph.
You say again?
That would be Stephanie.
Exactly. I'm
If she
saying,
was me.
Stephanie. So, and Stephanie and I had such detailed conversations. Also, I've posted some of them. So, all right, it's not a silly thing, really. It's sort of, but it's not anywhere. Yes, Stephanie, we all have some of that nonsense in us, but you are not remotely close to being a BMN, not even remotely. But this is the problem with good people. They tend to think of themselves that way. And, they devalue themselves, and they kind of run themselves down because they're so afraid of being egotistical and self-important. They go to the opposite extreme. And that's also not good. Yes, yes, we must be honest about ourselves, but to over exaggerate, to be overly humble and overly modest, that's just been untrue as well. So we can't do that either. We have to be truthful. So in the same way as we have to acknowledge our nonsense, we also have to acknowledge our goodness. We have to balance it
Yes.
out. So self-appreciation, it becomes not an act of ego, but an act of honesty. And that's huge. When we shift self-appreciation to being honesty and self-honesty and saying, well, if I regard myself as an honest, good person, I have to acknowledge the things that I appreciate about myself, my good qualities. I just have to do that as an act of honesty. I don't have a choice. Then we take that pressure away, that pressure of ego and self-importance and, all of that stuff. So very, very profound shift of perspective. But when it comes to self-appreciation, it's profoundly transforms, because now you're just being accurate. You're just being honest. That's it. Very simple. You're not bragging or being any nonsense. You're just being honest. That's it. Very simple shift, but changes everything when it comes to self-appreciation, yeah?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. It does.
So unbelievable. So simple. So simple, but so huge.
Yeah, for me, it is like still I'm struggling with acceptance of my goodness and acceptance, and first the realization, and then the acceptance, and then claiming or owning that thing. That
There you go.
acceptance is a different thing for me, and owning that thing and is a different thing for me. I don't know.
Ah,
Am I right or wrong? But this is how it is happening to me. Like
yeah.
still, I'm struggling with that. I feel like okay, I might be in falling into again in the
Right.
ego part. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
scares me away.
Right. But here's the key, though. At least
Yeah.
you are saying might be, not are.
Yes. Yes.
So that's
Yes.
at least a shift, right? But there are a
Yes.
few things that you can accept without recriminations or without doubt. You can just accept that you have an intent to goodness.
Oh yes. Yes.
That's indisputable, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
do believe that you have intent to goodness with the hyphens and the caps, that you have this in your dictionary of power, yeah?
Yes. Yes.
That's the key. When we just trust in that intent to goodness, in our own intent to goodness, if we just trust that and know that and keep that front and center and say, look, I know that I have this deep, 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 profound intent to goodness. That is my core. How I express that, there I may run askew. I understand that. I'm learning. I'm trying to figure out how to be good, how to express that, how to deal with that. But my intent to goodness, that's unquestionable. And that I would say for you, Bina, you, Mary, you, Ryan, everyone, Donna, everyone, Rachel, all of us, that intent to goodness, that's unquestionable.
Yes.
Right, Mary?
Yep. Yep. It is.
It's unquestionable. Sorry, sometimes things need a verbal confirmation because it's so powerful. It now that yes becomes not just a yes of agreement. It's not what I'm after. I'm looking for a yes of an expression of intent.
Yeah. I was saying this to somebody earlier today who she's doubting that she's in the right place or doing the right thing all the time. And I said, you know what? I just own the fact that you are a good person.
There
Plain
you go.
and simple.
There
Own
you
it.
go. Right. Now, you see, when you say that to people, especially that have this lifelong habit of self-doubt, yeah, but I do bad things. Okay. When we shift that to saying, just be very clear that you have an intent to goodness. Yes, it might come out cockeyed, but now that's a big shift to say you are a good person, this they doubt. And that if you read Rachel's post, it comes from that. Actually, we had this discussion.
Yeah.
And I was saying, as far as I'm concerned, Rachel, you are a good person. I said, to me, that's just a fact, undoubtedly. And she struggled with that because it's the application of it. But when it came to her intent to goodness, well, that's unquestionable. And you see it come. So
yeah,
really
I read her post earlier today.
Oh, good.
And it started to make me cry.
Yes.
Reading it.
Yes.
I felt like she's such a tortured soul in some respects.
Yeah, or was.
Yeah.
Was. We don't want to lock her in with the words. Was. It's a shift. Right.
Yeah, but you can see that from her words and what
that
she was saying.
There. Yes.
But and how she now sees that and sees the difference. It was wonderful. It really was.
Yes. It's magical to see that you see from that torturedness that, hey, you know what? You can shift out of that. And it hasn't been that long either, It just, that perspective shifting is such an incredibly magical thing. And, it's subtle sometimes how it comes about. But like in this case, you see that all that was required really was just that little teeny bit of shift of perspective. And it started to, it starts to snowball. It's just unbelievable. It's just huge. Oh, the post is massive. And also just that willingness to express it and put it out there. That's what I was saying in the comments there. It's an act of liberation. When we do that, yes, we commit to what we are saying. And that was her last comment on that. She said, so I guess if one writes the words, it's not just a new perspective, but now a reality, because the thoughts become words, which in turn makes a reality through actions. So yes, her post was, in other words, an application of herself. And the magic of that is, yes, it's her. And I said, it's an act of owning yourself. And if we don't own ourselves, we don't learn and grow. Now, the other part of this is, and I'll discuss it with Rachel when she comes on, is that just because you put that out there and it is an act of owning yourself and you are making yourself more real by putting it out there, it doesn't mean that you are limiting and defining yourself as only that. It's where you're at right now. Tomorrow you come with a different post and say, you know what? I've had a new realization. I've had new growth. I've expanded myself. So you are sharing the process of growth. And that is just magically exciting. And it's huge. So it doesn't lock us into anything. It's just that we commit to where we at right now. That's huge.
I always say it's a day by day.
Right.
It's never one. Next day is not going to be the same as the last, and
Exactly.
hopefully better than the last one.
And this is what I was asking. And Bina, do you see now what I was saying when I said share your journey? What Rachel's post when you read it, you'll see that's exactly Rachel sharing the journey. Not a conclusion. No, she was sharing her journey, her struggle, and the way she's even sharing the struggle of expressing the struggle. And that's profound. So, and now everybody's different. Now, I mean, the way you might share your journey, it's, man, this was profound to me. This is my realization. And it's not necessarily about struggle, but about realization and awareness and joy. It doesn't have to be about struggle. It just depends how and where you're at. But it's your particular journey through the program. And that's what I was keen to hear the sharing of, So, and that applies to you also, Mary, as you go along. If there's something that's significant and huge, it's a big deal to you, share it, put it out there. It's really huge,
Yep.
It's really huge.
So
Uh-huh.
I have question time again.
You always apologize for the questions. but
I'm just
but
saying
you have to understand that your questions are a power.
that.
Do you realize that, Bina? I mean, for me particularly, if you were just to say to me, like, what are you thinking about right now? I'll say, well, actually, not all that much. Usually I am actually thinking about something, but let's just say right now, it's like, I'm kind of chill, nothing in particular. But ask me an earnest question, and all of a sudden, all sorts of stuff comes out of me. So,
Yes.
your question is particularly an earnest question. It's a power over me. I've told you this before, and I want to
Yes.
just really make this clear. So those questions are a gift for me, because I get to hear what you pull out of me too. Do you realize that?
Yes. Thank you so much.
So
Okay.
I get to
Question
listen
is,
to myself, which is it's quite the weird thing in a sense. It's quite humbling in a way, but I don't know. All that shit is in there, I guess. So hey, it's got to come out. So
yes. So my question is, sometimes in our life, like if I just look at my life, my past life, from my childhood and then teenage and now in my teens, like uh, when especially when we are in our teenage, I was in my teenage, I did something like, okay, I was a mean to someone, with someone, and I did something. I feel regret and I feel embarrassed that, okay, Dina, you did something really bad.
good.
It was not something you're supposed to do.
Right.
But when I say that, okay, whatever I'm doing, I always do with good intent. It was not with good intent at that moment even. I was totally a mean person at that particular moment, and I did something with, with intent to being mean with someone.
Yes.
Sorry,
Yes. Yes. The key point on that.
sorry to interrupt you. This
Oh
is
no.
something.
Sorry. I thought you were done. Sorry.
Okay, this is something which always make me a bit reluctant to have a trust on my own in good intent.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
So now I need your views about that.
All right. So perspective shifting is our magic wand, right?
Yeah.
And what was the key word there that you said? I'm pretty sure Mary heard it too. A key phrase.
I have a lot of regret.
Mary, she said, in the moment. That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key. In other words, you
Yes.
got caught up in a bubble. So
Yes.
when you say, I am reluctant to connect to my intent to goodness, what are you doing? You are now taking the context that it's meant in, which is overall context, and you are now putting it into another bubble, right? So in that moment, were you being you?
Ah,
No, you weren't.
okay.
You were being a false version of you. You were inside a bubble. You weren't acting with the fullness of full real Bina. Because the moment you realized what you were doing, you felt bad.
Yes.
There you go. Do you see my point? So the fact that's why I said good when you said I felt bad.
Yeah.
Because that's a proof of your intent to goodness. The fact that you did feel bad and the fact that you realized that you got. So the power of that as a lesson is to say, hey, we can get into these immersion bubbles of unawareness, which get us to not be our real selves. And that's something to be cautious of and to be aware of.
Yeah. Going back to losing Paul was one thing that made me realize I can't live in my past and I couldn't live in my future.
Right.
I had to
Right.
live for that moment and then just
Right.
move on to the next
Right.
one by one. And it's always a venture.
Exactly.
It's,
And you
it's
know,
never the same.
right,
Never the same.
right. And you know,
Yeah.
such actions, they are profound gifts. They are absolute huge gifts. You know, if you look like Bina, if we look at this from a different perspective, if we listen to Mary and we look at it from the zoomed out perspective, overview perspective, we see that Paul's transition was this incredible, incredible, incredible gift, capital G gift to Mary. It was transformative for Mary
Yes.
in incredible ways. What a
Yes.
gift! What a gift! Now, how do we know? And for me personally, I choose to believe, whether it's true or not, but I choose to believe because sometimes we have to believe. I believe that sometimes souls come for a purpose, very specific. And like Paul, that was it. That was the mission. That was the task to come and to transition under those conditions because it was so transformative for Mary.
Oh,
Yeah. Yep. I believe that as well. It
Right.
changed my life in a way that probably never would have happened otherwise.
Exactly. It changed
wow.
your soul, right?
Yeah.
Which now, when we look overview perspective, which is universal perspective, we say this is about the long-term deal. This is about our soul. Our soul sometimes really, really needs to learn stuff that it's stuck in, and it needs this profound leverage to get it unstuck. And it takes something so profound sometimes to unstuck us, or just to at least make us aware of something that otherwise we would, under normal conditions, not be aware of. And
Yeah,
that's profoundly transformative.
Yeah.
And it's just
I've
you.
had
Now,
I've had some people look at me sideways when I've said that, having had Paul in my life and the way he changed my life was
magical.
for me, it was, and he really became a part of who I am in some ways.
Yes.
And that was, and they look at me like, but now this person isn't in your life anymore. Why would you say that? I said, because I said, he really helped me grow in a way that I wouldn't have, because I was so sheltered. I lived a very sheltered life until he came along. So
there you go. And he is in your life still.
Yeah.
That's why it's transition, not lost. You didn't lose Paul. He's still in your life. He's very profoundly in your. Every time we chat, Paul is there, and he's this magical influence.
It's not just memory for me. It's more than that.
Exactly. That's why transition is such a powerful word, because he's transitioned from one particular type of relationship, a physical one, to a non-physical spiritual relationship. So Paul now is actually part of your spirit.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
very
you.
much so.
I think, Bina, in the same way, this applies to you and your father, right? Even though you were very young.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Your father has taken on somewhat of a mythological conception in a sense, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. This transition, this word transition in itself is a huge, huge gift. Sil, you gave me, because when I was struggling with this all way of impeccability, and I was decluttering my life physically, but you said, okay, Bina, do it with impeccability. And when I started that, it was a huge transition in myself, within myself.
Right.
And after like 20 years, my father passed away, and after 20 years, we just take out his briefcase from our main room in our it was there the way it was when he was with us, and we were keeping that. Okay, we were not letting it go, and nobody. And it was like, okay, when I achieved something and I got some certification, something, I used to put it in that, so I can. It was like, for me, it was sharing with my father. But after 20 years, when Sil said, okay, the word is transition, not like a depart or part or something. So I just did that. I just take everything out, and I said, and I actually shed so many tears, and I cried out loud. But I
Good, good.
then I said, okay, now it's time to just let it go, because I just can't live in that moment. We just can't, because my siblings also
Right.
struggling with that. So I said, okay, no more with that thing, because it is something we need to understand. We need to realize that yes, he is with us, but not in this physical form.
Exactly, exactly.
So I will grow. I will grow within myself, and my siblings also. We will grow individually as a person, as an independent person, because
Yes,
we were
yes.
still clinging to that thing. Like, okay, yes, Baba is here.
The idea. Yeah,
Yes, and it was making us sad. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
continuously making us sad, because I was 5 years old at that
Right,
time. But
right.
till now, I was in that situation. And okay, I said, okay, now it's time to. It was a huge, huge personal transition. Huge
Yes.
moment. So, Mary, thank you so much for sharing this, because I have been through all these things. You'll know that, and Donna also know that what happened at that
Wow.
time. But
Well,
yes, it was.
you know what? We all helped one another in one way
Exactly,
or another somewhere along the line. You
exactly.
know,
That's why
things
sharing.
resonate for
Yeah,
a reason.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's sharing with a capital S, because sharing is a power.
And
Power.
it was kind of a making myself vulnerable, because I was feeling vulnerable at that time. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I was letting it go, and then okay, now I am on my own. I have to deal the world with myself, okay, and I have to do it by myself. So it was kind of a feeling of vulnerability at that moment. So
Right.
it was overwhelmed. It was too depressing, too overwhelming for me at that time. But it was huge transformative process, because from that moment I actually taking things and making decisions in my life by myself, and I'm taking responsibility of my own life. So
That's
though it
huge.
was painful, yes, but it was necessary, it was crucial
Yeah.
to take
Yeah.
control of my own life. And after that I like, okay, yes, I was feeling vulnerable, but I'm also feeling liberated also. Yes.
Yes, because you claimed
Yeah.
your independence of being. And that
Yes.
for both you and Mary is huge. Because look, Mary, how you said, Paul transformed your life from basically you were kind of a bit sheltered, yeah?
Yeah.
And the same
Yeah.
thing with
Very much
Bina.
so.
Yeah, and same thing with Bina. There's a very big parallel. I mean, Bina's used that exact word. And
Yes.
now,
Yes.
what happened when you claimed that transition? It wasn't just that they transitioned, Paul and your father, that they had transitioned from one form of existence to another, but also, as you say, you claiming your own transition. And that is a transition from a dependency, which can be very
Yes.
positive, like in the case of Mary and Paul and you and your father. But it is a transition to you claiming your own independence of being. And that
Yes.
is absolutely essential in the huge overall universal soul perspective, because
Yeah.
as good as those relationships were, it's still a dependency of a kind, and that means that we aren't truly free, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Yes.
if we truly love somebody like Paul, if he truly loves you, and his soul would say, yes, this is good for Mary, but long term not so much, right?
Yeah. I
Yes.
had to find an inner strength when he got sick that I never even imagined would be
Exactly.
possible.
Exactly. So not only did you transition from a dependency, you also transitioned to an awareness that I am more than what I ever imagined I might be. You
Yeah.
connected to the more of yourself. And that is a huge, huge, huge deal. It only takes one such experience in your soul's existence for that evermore to change everything going forward. Because now nothing is off the table anymore.
Right. Yeah. Well, the perfect
Unbelievably huge.
example. The perfect example was the day the doctor came and said there was nothing else they could do for him, and we were alone together in the room with the doctor when the doctor said it, and it was the first time that the light bulb went on in his head, and he knew that he wasn't going to survive. And the first thing out of his mouth was, "What are you going to do?"
Wow.
Oh,
And I said, "You know what, babe? Don't worry about it." I said, "I've got this. We're going to worry about you. I'll take care of me later."
Excellent.
You know,
Excellent. See,
that's
that shift to your higher self, your deeper self, your real self. That was the moment when Mary shifted to her intent to goodness and claimed it. Right there.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, yep. I
yes.
had to. I had to.
Exactly.
I didn't have any other. I didn't have a
Right.
choice about it.
Right.
Really, it's
Exactly.
we were on a timeline more
Right.
or less
Right.
without really knowing what that timeline was.
Exactly.
Because when we asked, the doctor said, "Oh well, he could live for 2 weeks. He could live
Right.
for 6 weeks. We don't know." He ended up living for like another 8 to 10 weeks.
Wow.
And I said, "Wow, that's exactly what I said." He was so strong
Yeah.
physically, even though he'd gone through all of that, because he was a pretty big guy. The doctors just kept shaking their head like he should have been dead weeks ago. They kept
Wow.
saying this to me.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So, you were saying that at that moment you had no choice but to claim your intent to goodness and own it.
Yeah,
That's the gift of Paul right there.
yeah, yep.
They're profound.
That's why I had, that's
Profound
why I hang on to him
Yep.
in a certain respect.
How can you not? How can you don't love somebody and then you stop loving them when they transition to a different way of being?
Yeah,
No, you love them forever.
It's
Right.
the body. It's the body that went in the ground, not
The
the
spirit, you still love the spirit.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you love the gift of it too, the ongoing. And you have this ongoing relationship. It's not like it's just you connecting to a memory. No, your relationship with Paul is shifting and changing as your awareness and understanding of the greatness of what's going on goes. Like in this sharing that we did now, to see it as this profound gift, man, that changes your whole relationship right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Fantastic.
laugh about it. I laugh about it sometimes because not all my family. I mean, I come from a very large family.
Right. Mary's one of 13, Bina.
Not
Wow.
not all of my brothers who were very important, because there were 8 of them, and they were kind of they were put higher up on the hierarchy in life in our family. So not all the brothers accepted him with me being the youngest one.
Right.
They had a real problem with him coming into my life because he was a strong personality.
Right.
So they I can count on one hand of the 8 brothers, those which really connected to him, and
Interesting.
they're the ones who still stay in contact with me now.
So it actually
we've all,
strengthened that relationship too. That's powerful.
Yeah, that we've all scattered, so we don't. We're lucky if we see each other once every few years as a group. But of those brothers, 3 of them I hear from on a regular basis.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
So there's so much magic that came from it. Now, also, Mary, the other thing, part of this is to acknowledge and appreciate your own personal shifts of perspective. In other words, the way you now look at your family and what you are just describing here now is you are describing this really huge, profound shift within yourself of what is a profound change of perspective, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It took me a long time to realize that I actually did have a voice.
Right. There you go.
Because the brothers didn't want the girls in the house to have a voice. That was life as it was. And either you accepted that or you said, "Oh no, wait a minute. Right. Can you listen to me for 1 minute to hear what I have to say?" And that it maybe with my mom living to be 102, that factored into a little bit. Because from the time I was 21 until I moved to Florida 5 years ago, I was always with my mother every day to help her one way or another.
Wow.
So when I decided to move, I caught more flack and that was after Paul. It was about 3 years after Paul died, maybe 4 years after Paul died, that I decided that I was moving. They were all like, well, what are you doing that for? You're supposed to be here for Mom. I said, really? Really? Have I not been here for Mom? I said, how about I
Good
take
for
care
you.
of me?
There you go. You claimed your independence of being fully. I love that. Mary, while you chat, I'm just going to have to go live because we're over the time. So,
Yep, go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt you. So,
no, go.
But yeah, that claiming your own independence of being, I mean, that is so unbelievably huge. It's just, it just can't be emphasized how huge that is, right?
Yeah. Like I say, having come from a sheltered group,
Right.
it was a big shift for me to be able to say, listen, I mean something too.
Right. And also in the connection of, 1 second here. It's not wanting me to go live here for some reason. I don't know why. Let's try again. It said error. We'll try again. There we go. That claiming of your independence of being, that's really, 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 really huge. So I'm just waiting for it to come up here. I'll elaborate in a second. Just want to make sure we're in the right place. Okay. Brilliant. I do believe we're there. Going live, it says. All right. Yep. Going live in 0 seconds. We're live already, Facebook. So that claiming of our independence of being, it's absolutely huge, because also, Mary, growing up in such a large family, one of 13 and you're the youngest, and you've 8 brothers. And like you were saying, the brothers, they didn't want the girls to kind of like speak their mind and speak up. In other words, what I'm saying, in previous centuries, okay, I'm teasing you a little bit.
Oh yeah, no. My parents were very old school.
Right.
Very old school.
Right.
As a matter of fact, they were actually older than my contemporaries' parents.
I would imagine. Oh, much older. Right. Well, what I'm trying to say is that
from a different era.
Exactly. Right. But what you're describing is hierarchy. And that's what we are talking about in the book. That implicit hierarchy, where they're not deliberately trying to put you down, but it's just there in what they do. They just kind of take it for granted. They have this implied understanding of, of hierarchy, and it's just nonsense. And that, stepping away from that, that's a huge, huge, huge deal. And that's what, you claiming your own independence of being, that's what came from that. It's one of the power things of unhooking from hierarchy and saying, no, your hierarchy thing is nonsense. I have just as much.
It's kind of what got me hooked on your posts to begin with.
Oh, interesting. Right. Oh, very interesting. Oh, that's good to hear, Mary. That's good to hear. It's interesting. Again, I never, ever have made one single post that I can remember. Maybe there might be an exception, the way I did something for a specific purpose of writing it for somebody, or, but all my posts in general, I'm writing just for myself. I'm just sharing me to the universe. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not writing it to somebody, for somebody. I'm just sharing what is real to me, what's significant to me, what matters to me. That's it. Just that sharing. But it just goes to show the power of such sharing. And, to where we started our conversation earlier in terms of Rachel's post, that's the same thing. It's a power sharing. Your post, your post about this sharing of your story with you and Paul, it's exactly the same thing again. It's why I like to see it, and then you repost it every now and then. It's why it's so powerful, because when we share our truth, it's huge. No matter how awkward it may seem to us, how it comes out, or doesn't matter. We have that ability as human beings, as sentient beings, to hear past the expression, to hear what's meant underneath, to feel that truth underneath. And that's very important to understand, that we have that ability to hear past words.
Yeah. Well, it's a gift not only to ourselves, but hopefully to other people.
Right. And if it is, that's bonus to me. If somebody gets some value, it's just bonus. It's not why I do it, and it cannot be why I do it. It's just bonus. That's it. The only thing I can do is express my truth. What comes from it, comes from it. That's it. All right. So it still say going live 00. So come on, Facebook. As far as I know, we are live already. Dang never. I don't know what Facebook thinks we're like undead before we go live, but come on. We're zombies. We're zombies. It's a message from somebody. Yeah, let's see. I'll share the screen in a moment, and then we actually start the reading. Oh, it's Valerie. Valerie, I'm doing a live, so I'll have to get to your comment later. Let me just say it there, and she can maybe join and see.
Yeah, sorry to miss out on yesterday, but I went to go watch the ponies run.
Good. That's brilliant. No. There's no sorry about it.
No, actually had a great day. Went
Excellent.
with a bunch of friends. We had a blast.
Right. And that's the key, it's in terms of joining the takeaway sessions. It's come when you can, and don't feel bad if you can't. There's no obligation and no expectation, as in everything. That's our rule number one for our interactions. No expectations, no obligations. So, again,
that's a good thing.
Yeah, whatever happens, happens. Besides, not only do we have the twice a week scheduled takeaway sessions, we also do them on demand, impromptu as they come. And that happens, pretty regularly, typically at least once a day. So, no worries, Mary. You come when you can, and that's it. It's not a problem. And then there's like today, which is the same thing. Really, look, we've had a fantastic little takeaway session just before doing the Facebook Live here. So it's quite magical, So all good. All right, so we're still on chapter 3, which, just to recap and fill in those, just in case, because it's not just that these are live; they also get watched as the recording later on. So we're doing a reading of. Let me go to the other camera here. We're doing a reading of this book here. I'll just hide my whole face and see it, and it's not just a reading; it's a live, interactive reading, and that's the key. That's the big key. It's a live, interactive reading. It's not just me reading it. We're all reading it together. And that's what makes the magic, is when we do read this together. It's the discussion that comes from it and the feedback. So, Bina, did we lose Bina? Pity. I think we did, right? Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
It happens. Bina's connection is not so good, and I think sometimes when we go onto the Facebook Live, it makes that extra strain on the connectivity. So we can hope Bina comes back. But anyway, and Ryan's AFK, but he's there, he's listening, so it's all good. I think they had to go as well, maybe. So either way, it doesn't matter. So just to catch up, we're on chapter 3, and chapter 3 is it's called Deep-Seated Causality. And it's very powerful. So we're going into the deepness of the underlying reasons why people bullshit. Not just bullshit, but why they manipulate and why they deceive and why they are basically adopting a way of living and a way of being that's profoundly kind of cockeyed. So there's sections in this there's understanding. Conceit was one of the subsection headings. Avoidance is the next one. Then we get narcissism. And these are all the deep-seated causality, agendas and beliefs, emptiness, insecurity. These we've all covered. And we come today to justification. So we're going to go into this a little bit here on how they justify themselves, in other words, and what's important to them. Before I get going, one moment here. Not that I need it, but it's helpful sometimes. So, while I do this, Mary, can you read my screen? Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Just it's nice to be able to read along together, right? I don't know. I always like doing that. Even if somebody else is reading, I like to read along with them. Okay. So we're on the subsection of justification. And the quote to start off with is, weak foundation, weak character, suspect motivations, suspect agendas. It's very powerful to understand that, if we don't have those foundations that are really have solid character, then it all goes to crap from that. So very important. All right. Another major part of their excuse and justification for being a bullshitter is that actually being what they pretend to be is impossible. A myth they cling to with everything they have, because for them, this myth justifies the necessity of their bullshit, or at least validates it in some way. Together, people with independence of being disprove this myth with their very existence, and existence the bullshitter resents, as it conclusively shows them up and disproves their convenient self-myth. Now, we did this last week already. I'm just going to go over this first part a little bit until we go to the next session. Because this myth of it being impossible to be a good person, that is a nonsense myth. And they think it's impossible to be truly good. And so, oh, well, since it's actually impossible to really be good, like it's impossible to be a saint, well, now I've got to that's why it's okay for me to just bullshit and pretend that I am, because it's actually really in truth impossible, which is just...
Oh, hey, my mom was a saint.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. But again, to be good doesn't mean we have to be a saint. We can just be good in the way that we are. And that's what we were talking about earlier. We have an intent to goodness, all of us. We come by default with an intent to goodness. Every single person, as far as I'm concerned, comes with an innate default intent to goodness. How we apply that, that's the issue. Now, when it comes to the narcissists, they believe this is a good way for them to be. They're still trying to be good in their own weird way, but it's just a cocked up way. So we have to say that, hey, I can own my intent to goodness. How I apply that, that's a whole different thing. I might not always understand how exactly, but that doesn't matter. I still have to persist. So that's the key point that I wanted to go over here before going to the next section, because we did this last week. And just very important that we own our own goodness, our own intent to goodness, even if we don't know how exactly to be good. Okay, so we get to the section on conformism. Conformism. And the quote is, the driving force behind the skewed action of manipulated condonance is the lack of independent thinking and an aversion to standing alone and standing up for one's own principles, values, and truths, a consequence of subscribing to the pressures of conformity without discernment. That's huge, of subscribing to the pressures of conformity without discernment. And that was huge, Mary. You never subscribed to, the pressures of conformity in that big family of yours, the conformity of hierarchy, right?
No,
Never subscribed to that. But the gift that...
But, I kind of felt at times, maybe growing up, because I went along to, get along, so to speak.
There you
sometimes.
Go. Exactly. Exactly.
And then I would get mad at myself saying, why am I going along with this?
Right. Exactly. And then the key point that I want to connect here is that, yes, you didn't subscribe to the pressures of conformity. They may have pressured you and, they may have influenced you, but subscribing to them is a different thing. The fact that you didn't like it means you didn't subscribe to it, right? You didn't
right.
go...
Yeah.
The fact that,
I didn't fully accept it as being the way things
exactly.
should
be. Exactly. Yeah. But then there's that last part, without discernment. As you came on later in life and you started and the gift of your independence of being that came about from Paul's transition, now it brought you to a point where you could fully unsubscribe and do so with discernment. And to know exactly what it is that you are doing. In other words, you aren't just saying, I'm not subscribing to your hierarchy nonsense. I'm also claiming my own independence of being, which is not me saying that you are negative, you are bad. No, it's just me doing what's right for me, which is that's the discernment. It's a very profound shift. Yes?
Yeah, very much so. The oldest of the sisters in the family, she passed away when she was 49.
Oh, wow.
she had a brain aneurysm, but she got along with every single one of us.
Wow.
She was just happy and she was wonderful, really wonderful person.
Wow.
And she's who sometimes I think I took some of my cues from in life by seeing how strong she was as a person. She was little
Wow.
but mighty.
Awesome. I
She
can
was
live
only
here.
about
I can live here.
5'2". I'm
Yeah,
5'9". She was only like 5'2".
Wow.
She, she was just, but she just really strong spirit, and that's it. It was huge. That's another one, like the loss of the person daily in your life.
Yes.
That was a huge thing for me. I was
Right.
like,
But here's what I'm hearing.
20s.
Here's what I'm reeling. You see, when we shift that from thinking of losing people to saying, hey, they transitioned, and we realize that there's a power in that transition. There's a magic.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that when your sister transitioned, her magic, her power went into you.
Yeah.
In some way.
I think so, because she really, like I say, she got along with everybody, and I just found that so huge, because there are so many different personalities in the 13.
Right. And you make that effort now to get on. You've taken on much of your sister, but you've done so with discernment to make it your own, right? So your sister isn't lost. I hear your sister now in you. Brilliant. Bina's back. Awesome.
Yeah. It just.
Am I right, Mary? I'm hearing your sister through you. In the same way as I hear Paul through you, same way as I hear your mother through you.
I do try my best to get along with my siblings.
There you go. Right.
I can't say I want them in my life on a daily basis, but I do my best to get along with them when we are together.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying here. That was the power of this quote, right? To the pressures of conformity without discernment. Now what you've done is you are reacting to the pressures of conformity with discernment. So in other words, you are not just applying Paul. You're not just applying your mother, your sister, in the variation as you've come to adopt them in you because you've made it your own. You are now applying the fullness of real Mary with discernment. So yes, getting along with all your siblings the way your sister did, that was your sister's thing. It may have worked for her, but it's not appropriate for you. So are you doing what's appropriate for you? In other words, with discernment. And that is huge. Yeah?
Yeah. Because I don't like the drama of the argument that happens in the large group. It's too upsetting for me when the siblings start going at one another.
Yep.
So I always try to be the peacemaker.
There you go.
Sometimes successfully, sometimes not.
But you try. That's the key. Exactly. And you're happy trying. That's the point too. We can't try because we feel we have to, we should, we must. That's conformity. You are doing so with discernment. You are doing so because you choose to, because it's right for Mary, right?
Right. Yeah.
Very big difference. Very big difference.
And I really tend to do so for those that I feel closest to. If I feel like they're being attacked, I want to step up just to say, what's this all? Why do you need to do this? We see each other so rarely. Why don't we just keep the peace for the day?
Exactly. It's huge. It's huge, Mary. It's massively huge. It's a very big deal.
Yeah. I get that we're all different personalities and we all see things different ways, but that doesn't mean we can't get along for one day and one day every 3 or 4 years.
Exactly. Hey, Ryan's back. Brilliant.
Yeah, man, I had a little thing. It was unexpected.
Oh, wow. Like an anomaly?
I guess so. I guess.
Lost in a black hole?
Well, we just started the reading, so we can put that on hold for a moment and because I'm getting the feeling that this was significant to you personally, yeah?
Yeah, it was, but I'm going to leave in 20 minutes to drop this off at but then I'm coming right back.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll just kind of leave for a little bit and come back.
Okay. Okay. So you'll share that story afterwards. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So while you're here, Ryan, I was going to ask Bina to do it, but since you're going soon, Bina can read later on. Will you read what I've got highlighted there? Can you read it?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, here we go. So attuned is the bullshitter to what's cool and what others believe will look good. They don't realize how utterly dependent they are on the opinions and beliefs of others. Their entire focus and being becomes slaves to what others think, robbing them of independent thought. Bullshitters are so bent on controlling and dominating, on being superior, this contradiction of their psychology escapes them. They have to be focused on what others like and want, what they think, not only to supply others with what will impress them, but also to gain that much needed drug of approval.
Yeah. Hang on 1 second there.
Okay.
No, because it's just a paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That to gain that much needed drug of approval. They don't realize that they're addicts. And you know, they are so connected to this. I'm just kind of giving my feedback on this. They're so connected to this idea that I'm the best, that I'm, looking fantastic and important. They don't realize that they are slaves to others, that they are unfree completely. And it's like, man, if your whole logic is hierarchy and being better, the very fact that you're looking for approval of others puts you in nowhere, really. It's just too funny for me. It's just too ridiculous. Go ahead, Mary. Say again.
I was going to say it means diddly squat.
Exactly.
Reminds me of my girlfriend's husband. He, Mr. Important, as I like to call him.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
There's
no other word for it.
Right. And remember the first chapter that we know, well, beside the introduction chapter, the first chapter where we really get into it is the chapter on preposterousness. That's it. That's when we understand the psychology. We have to really make peace with and understand preposterousness and say it's just preposterous.
Yeah,
all right.
He's king of the mountain.
There you go. Exactly. All right, Ryan, the next paragraph, please, if you don't mind, man. It's very cool. I love it.
Okay. The bullshitter who so craves to be special and wonderful becomes addicted to what others think. They're peculiarly dependent on those they seek to impress and those who criticize them. Bullshitters become dependent conformists, seeking through others the condoning of their behavior, in the process surrendering whatever little bit of freedom they might have. The price they pay for the imagined benefits is way more than they could ever bargain for. And when it comes to this deal, they're stupendous losers. Ironically, in their quest to be winners, their own actions turn them into monumental losers.
Right. Now we see on the world stage right now on TV, we see this classic example of winner and loser, and somebody who in this always looking to be a winner and calling everybody else losers actually is this profound loser because they're so dependent on not only those they are trying to impress, but those who criticize them. They're completely dependent on it. And it's just, now again, winners and losers are in inverted commas for a very important reason, because that's their thinking, not ours. Yeah, that's their thinking. To us, everybody's color. We celebrate difference, right? So that's it. We enjoy the whole spectrum of all the colors. You can't remove a color from the color spectrum. That's it. Then the whole thing collapses. So we don't see this winner and loser thing, because when you think of winner in that sense, if you want to be a winner, you're making somebody else a loser. For me, that's not very cool. Right?
Right. Yeah. You know what? And culturally, we all see things differently,
right,
which I think is wonderful, because it gives you so many different perspectives on life when you know people from all different kinds of cultures, rather being stuck in, I'm whatever.
Exactly. It's fantastic. It's really powerful. It's very powerful. All right, Bina, if you wouldn't mind, excuse me, would you read the quote, please?
Okay. Being social is sometimes a trap of a different kind, especially for the child. Sorry, it is too small for me because on my laptop it's
Oh, I
small.
see. All right, hang on. Let me make it bigger. No problem.
Okay. Yes, please.
Is that better?
Yes, a bit.
Hang on. Let me just, I'll make it even bigger, but I got to just center it here. So hold on.
Okay.
There we go. That should be good, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Being social is sometimes a trap of a different kind, especially for the child, teenager, often fraud with
Fraud.
with peer pressure, inadvertent assumptions, choices of being and other subtle. I don't know what it is. Potential.
Yeah, potential.
Yeah, it is still a bit bright for me.
Oh, sorry, Bina. Let me make it even bigger. No problem, man. Sorry,
No,
I
I'm
didn't
just,
realize it's small for you. There we go. Let's try even more.
my laptop screen is a bit smaller, so
Yeah,
that's why.
yeah. No problem. But you see what the magic is here, what's happened. Look at this, the
Okay.
universe helping us out a little bit, right? And in this, that just the smallness of it, basically, it forced an awkward expression, right? But
Okay.
now, that's what we were talking about earlier. To get
Yeah.
comfortable with being able to express stuff and to express it awkwardly. That's the process. And it's not a big deal. Okay, this was also a tricky quote because it has, just in terms of the vocabulary and the language, it's one of those quotes that's a complex one. So would you like to do it again?
Yes, okay. Being social is sometimes a trap of a different kind, especially for the child, teenager, often fraught with peer pressure, inadvertent assimilation, choices of being, and other subtle potential pitfalls.
Right. That was very fast, but okay, that's good.
Okay.
A little too fast, yeah. So yeah, it's kind of a layered, very deep quote, as some of these are. So I'm going to go over it again because I need to grab it in my head here. Being social is sometimes a trap of a different kind, especially for the child teenager. Often fraught with peer pressure, inadvertent assimilation, choices of being, and other subtle potential pitfalls. So this is just talking about being social. It's this big trap because being social when you're a teenager comes with peer pressure, inadvertent assimilation, choices of being, and other subtle potential pitfalls. So to connect this back to where we're at, we're looking at conformism, right? And how conformism is one of the deep-seated causalities, deep-rooted causalities, underlying causality for bullshit and narcissism and manipulation. So now we're going to connect it to this next section here. So we'll just go through it one section at a time. So, all right, I'll read this one, then Mary, maybe you'll do the next one, yeah?
Yeah.
Observing the bullshitter's connection to conformity can alert us to our own possible unintended adoptions, which we perhaps didn't choose. Conformity is a peculiar beast. I don't know what's happening back there, but some wild sounds.
Sorry, it's me.
Oh, it's you. I thought it was
I'm
Bina.
putting
Oh, I muted you now. I put your sound off, so I didn't mean to. Sorry. Say again, Mary. You did what?
I said it was me. I'm putting something away in the kitchen.
Ah, right. Yeah. The microphones on especially if you're on a phone, they're very sensitive, and we hear all sorts of stuff, but you don't hear it yourself, which is fascinating.
No, I know it. It's my drawer that sticks in this place.
All right, so you should have a little mute button there where you can just mute yourself when you go off like that.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. It's not a big deal. That's the thing. We adapt, and we it's like it's no big deal at all. Conformity is a peculiar beast. It's not necessarily bad, but it's not particularly good either. When it comes to conformity, we certainly cannot just go with the flow. Society as a whole is more or less sensible. That less holds many potential dangers. So yeah, we've got to be very careful of conformity. All right. So all right, since Mary's busy doing something, Bina.
I'm back. I'm back.
Okay. All right. Go ahead then, Mary. You read the next one, yeah.
Okay. Simply conforming for conforming's sake will rob us of our precious individuality leaving us feeling hollow and empty without really understanding the cause. If inside we are not living according to what we've chosen for ourselves freely, then it's no wonder we don't really feel.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. you
Yep.
know, yes,
Nope,
even
no,
though
you
I'm
know.
part of writing this, this is kind of a big statement that's being made here. This is why I like it when you guys read, because I get to hear, you know, and I really make it shifted my whole thing to hearing. So when I'm reading,
Yeah.
I'm not always hearing.
Well,
So
you know, it's like the family trying to tell me what to do.
exactly. But we understand conformity will rob us of our precious individuality. That we know. That's kind of obvious, right? Leaving us feeling hollow.
Yep.
Okay. But we're saying if inside we are not living according to what we've chosen for ourselves freely, then it's no wonder we don't really feel. That's the part that's so huge. That's the extra. Because the rest of it was all just like really obvious, right? Okay, and the obvious,
Yeah.
making obvious is very good. But now, when we add this part here, then it's no wonder we don't really feel. That has lots of implications to it. If you just look at people in general and people you know, they don't really feel good. They don't feel themselves. They don't feel real. And that's why. Because they're not living their own lives. They're living somebody else's life. And if you're living somebody else's life, it's no wonder that you don't really feel. And that's the problem. People are empty and hollow and dissatisfied and all this stuff and unhappy. And the reason for it is because they don't feel. And or when they do feel, they feel cockeyed stuff. So this is why. It's because they are feeling other people's stuff, not their own.
Yeah, a lot of garbage coming at you is what it is.
Exactly. It's very powerful. All right, so let's get Ryan before he has to go here. Go ahead, Ryan, please. Oh, by the way, Ryan, I like the slow reading. So again, Mary and Bina, don't feel like you got to read fast. That slow reading is really powerful. So it's really helpful. For me,
I
anyway.
was reading thrice.
Yeah, you went all fast, Bina, but go slowly.
Because I was reading it thrice, like one and then two and then three. So it was
right. So okay, I'm also doing, you know, just through us all reading it. It's that it's the opportunity to express as well. So it's just a little bit extra, you know, just part of the whole way of impeccable. Right. Just okay, we're applying a little bit here through the reading. So you know, that's why I'm really enjoying Ryan's reading. Not that I didn't enjoy yours and Mary's, I did also, but enjoying because Ryan is going very deliberately and slowly. So it gives me the opportunity to really hear. And also, Ryan, I hear you kind of figuring it out as you go along. And just for anybody listening, to read off the fly like this, something that you've never read before, it's very powerful, and it's not easy to do because you don't quite know where the emphasis on the nuance, and you're reading somebody else's voice. So there's a lot going on when we read like this. So, Ryan, in going slowly, you are reading also and kind of comprehending it as you go along. It's very powerful, man.
You have to, it takes a lot of focus.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of focus.
Right.
And you really have to be paying attention to the punctuation, how the word, how it's. You kind of have to do an overview scan and then read the word as you're going, and it's kind of like an intuitive thing.
Yep. Very powerful, very powerful. It's good practice too, you know, because
it's not easy to do.
I know coming in Ryan's future is where he's going to be reading off the teleprompter. So
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not joking. I'm really serious. You know what? I actually have next time, Ryan.
Yeah.
I've got a little teleprompter program, a little software thingy, and I'll pull it up and then I'll pop this into the teleprompter and then it'll scroll up just for the fun of it. Why not? You know, I love multitasking, multi-purposing. So
I agree with you. I know I'm going to be speaking to millions of people one day. And I know I'm going to be on TV one day. Not because I'm going to be famous because I want to be famous, but I know I'm going to be leading large.
Your path, right?
That's just the direction I'm headed with the politics and all of that kind of stuff.
You know, good for you.
That's what I want to do.
You were headed that way before the politics gave a forum for that. You were headed that when it came to your personal truths.
You know what? I was doing that when I was 5, 6 years old.
There you go.
Wow.
Yep.
I wasn't aware of it though.
Right. It's living with discernment. That's the key. When we start to become aware of ourselves, we develop that discernment on ourselves, not just discernment as a general quality. Yes, discernment, we use it as capital D discernment. It's a power. But when we start to discern ourselves and the layeredness of ourselves, it becomes huge. And then we can own ourselves. Okay, Ryan's on a path where he's going to be involved directly in sharing to the public. That's huge, and that's fantastic. It's like, man, I love it that there are people who are willing to do that, because not something that is particularly appealing for me personally, So
and it's not like an easy thing to do.
Precisely, as I was saying.
Exactly.
Thank you for you doing it.
Exactly.
It's not easy at all. No. But
That's why I said good for him.
exactly. However, just because we don't necessarily personally want to do it, doesn't mean that when opportunity like what we are doing here now presents itself, and that's why I'm asking you guys to read, that we all develop some measure of comfort. So I'm saying it's not something that I have a personal predilection to do, but that doesn't mean that I'm unable to do it. If necessary, if appropriate, if I have to do it, okay, I at least want to know that I'm able to do it. That's it. Then I'm satisfied. That's enough for me, right?
Well, you definitely have to have a lot of confidence, and you have to be sure of yourself 100%. Because when you're in a public eye, when you're in front of a lot of different people, everybody's gonna pick you apart. So this program's helping me out so much, because it's helping to refine skills on communicating.
And the self-discernment, which has led you to that statement, which is, it's not just about the confidence, it's about the self-trust. And you can't self-trust yourself if your foundations are not solid.
Right.
When you have solid foundations, then that's what you're trusting. You're trusting in your foundation. What comes from those foundations, that's different depending on the circumstances. And that's a matter of appropriateness. But at root, your foundations are solid. And that means that what flows from the foundations, you can trust. Right?
Yep.
That's the way of impeccability. Exactly. That's what it's all about. Right there, Ryan. Very awesome. All right. Let's not get too sideways. Not that it isn't awesome, but go ahead.
Okay. How can we, if what we are isn't fully our own? The bullshitter's lack of independence of being and their resulting hollowness are a stark warning of the dangers of allowing outside forces to shape us. We pay a stiff penalty for not caring about that most precious of all possessions, our real self. Inner attention to what isn't truly ours and choosing that which is makes an inordinate difference to our realness.
Read that last sentence again, please. Just because it's so huge.
Inner attention to what isn't truly ours and choosing that which is makes an inordinate difference to our realness.
That's exactly what we were talking about before this. That's exactly right there. You, Ryan, and you, Mary, and you, Bina, all of you in the program. That's what we are doing, right? We are paying inner attention to what isn't truly ours. Not just what is, but also to what isn't, and choosing that which is really ours, what's truly ours. And that makes an inordinate difference to our realness. When we deliberately choose what is ours, that's when it becomes personal power, right?
And you don't know that until you flesh it all out, like what we're doing,
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's finding those things that really have a meaning for you.
I'll be back in like 20 minutes. Okay?
All right. Brilliant, Ryan. Brilliant, man. Brilliant.
Before moving forward,
Uh-huh.
I have a question again.
Oh, please. No, I will have your questions. We'll have your questions. The questions are just, they're like manna from heaven, Bina. So questions are awesome, man. Just ask them. Just you don't need to qualify them. Just go ahead and say, please, no worries.
I just joined when you guys were already discussing. So the topic was, the heading was conformity. The conformity is, for me, it is like what we seek from others. Is it, when Mary said that, okay, it is like taking orders from others, taking suggestions from others. For me, conformity means was seeking approval from others, seeking
Yes,
confirmation
yes,
from others. So
yes.
am I taking it wrong or just
No, no.
No.
Conformity comes in many different shapes and forms and variations. So
okay?
to
And that
conform,
almost to me, that almost goes along together. The seeking of the approval goes along with taking the orders from
right,
people.
right,
You know,
Okay.
they
Right.
kind of go hand in hand in my mind.
right.
Okay.
So the root of conformity is the desire to be like others, or the
Okay. Or
idea that we should be like others. So conformity has this underlying assumption that to be similar and to be the same is good. That's the underlying power of conformity, and why it has an influence on us. Because if you just think of it of its own accord, why is it important to be like others? Because someone somewhere said it was good, and that's the idea of conformity. It's a subtle underlying intent and a pressure.
okay. Okay.
So
Yeah,
we're
to
not
conform
conforming.
to conform in the large family was almost a requirement to keep
Yes,
things in order for my parents,
right,
that we
right.
all, you know, and those of us that chose to like not conform,
We're
you know,
disruptive.
or yeah.
Right, right.
One of my favorite brothers, he's the biggest nonconformist in the family, and you can't help but love him. He's a great
Wow.
guy. He's so much fun, and he thinks in an entirely different way from
Right,
the rest of the family. And he was always getting it from my dad all the
right,
time because he pushed the envelope at every chance he got.
right. But
You know?
now this brings up a nice underlying thing of where conformity comes from. From your parents' point of view, dealing with 13 children, this makes life difficult. If they all each individually different, now you have to treat each one the same, which takes extra time and extra energy, which with 13 kids you don't necessarily have. But if you can just say, okay, you know what, today we're making whatever, let's just say we're watching a movie, or with some food, and I can just assume you all are going to eat it and you're all going to like it. Well, life is easy, right? So that conformity.
Oh, it wasn't even you were going to like it. What was put on the table, you ate it. And
Right,
if you didn't
right.
eat it, it was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you went and made yourself.
Right. Which for me is preferable, but okay, you know. So, but I'm making the point that when it comes to conformity, there are reasons why it's deemed valuable, because it does save time and energy, and it doesn't lead to disruption, or at least the perception of disruption. It's a belief, but it's a very flawed belief, obviously. Now, when it comes to society, we do want some measure of conformity, even if we are nonconformists. Even your nonconformist brother will agree that, not hurting each other physically, that's something that you all want to conform to, right?
Yeah. No, he's a kind soul.
Exactly. So conformity has power and has value when it comes to things that are very deep, like, for instance, not physically harming others, right?
Yeah.
And just general consideration. You can be as different as you like, but don't be inconsiderate about it. Yes, you like your different wild music that you dance to, Rachel. She was listening to heavy metal music. But hey, listen to it where I don't also have to listen to it if it doesn't happen to be my thing, right? So I'll just tease Rachel a bit. I was so hoping Rachel was going to join. She was on, and I'm not sure why she's not here. So something must have happened. Rachel has a busy household as well, same as Bina, and Mary grew up in a busy household. So did I, actually. Even though we were only 5, there were always people. It was a big physical house, so there were always friends staying over in the house, like on a very regular basis. So the house was always full of people. It was very cool. But anyway,
Yeah, yep. That's what happens when
Right,
in a
right,
larger. Somebody was always bringing somebody home. Oh,
right.
Mom, we got an extra for dinner.
Right, right,
Whatever.
right. So, and just because we had the physical space to do so, that all was
Yeah.
kind of neat, just the nature of the house was an unusual house. So, very cool. Anyway, so conformity, I'm trying to say is that to answer Bina's question, to understand conformity, we have to understand that it is a subtle pressure that has a purpose to it. And it's the pressure to be similar and to be the same. Now, it does, when it comes to society or families, there is a value to it because you can't be too wild and different than outside because you do have to, there is some measure of collaboration required. And yes, when you're all completely different, that collaboration isn't necessarily conformity, which is what we're aiming for. But and just from a practical matter, for most people that and like in society, when it comes to the conformity of, say, nonviolence, that's a necessary conformity. But we can't confuse that with saying, oh, we've all got to believe in the same God, we've all got to have the same politics and all that. Now it becomes inappropriate conformity, and that was the point of that so there was one point here to say that it's about appropriate conformity. I think somewhere I didn't say it that way, but we have to understand that it's not just a negative all the time. Sometimes we want to be conformist in a positive way, but it's also
my nonconformist brother.
Right, exactly.
When he was in high school, he worked at a fish co-op.
Wow.
After school, and smelly, nasty job, but whatever. he had a plan. He wanted to make himself some money because he wanted to buy the newest, greatest stereo system for his bedroom.
Ah, excellent.
With the big tower speakers, and he loved rhythm and blues and some of the old rock, but it was mostly rhythm and blues he liked to listen to.
Interesting.
Growing up.
Wow.
Yeah. So he got enough money, he got his stereo system, and one Saturday afternoon, he's sitting downstairs, had lunch, and he says to my mom, he goes, Mom, I'm going to go upstairs and go smoke myself some pot and listen to some music.
Oh, wow. And what did your mother do?
My mother just kind of looked at him. She said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going upstairs to smoke some pot and listen to some music.
And that was it. And that was it.
Yeah, he repeated it. And so my mother was just dumbfounded. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She let him go.
Wow. Because she realized that there was nothing he could do it. And Mary,
I sat there and I said, really, Mom, you're not going to give him a hard time about that? She said, no. She said, he's staying home. He's not outside driving around high. I said, okay.
There you go. There you go. Profound. Now, your story, as it's just a magical story because from an overview perspective, it has two really profound points. One, your mom's perspective shifting, right?
Yeah.
Your mom's perspective shifted right there, and so she understood. She saw it from a different viewpoint. She looked at it from overview perspective and said, "He's not out causing trouble. A lesser of the evils, brilliant. I'll have it." The other profound point is, in the context of also what we're talking about, is owning yourself. He owned that, and that was the end of that. Right?
Yeah.
And because he owned it, it was very clear that from his point of view, this wasn't a bad thing that he was doing.
Right. But and he was always very honest with my mom.
There you go.
Maybe not always with my father, but with my mom, he was always honest with her, and he would say whatever was on his mind or whatever, and she would just she was fine with it.
Right. And that's
he
the
was
point.
being honest with her.
Exactly. And him owning it and saying it like that, also the expression was very important. Because when he said it and he owned it in that expression, he's also saying, look, Mom, I'm just telling you truthfully what's going on. You can prohibit it and go on, but I'm going to do it anyway. So why make a conflict? It's not going to change the reality. So there's a lot going on in that story there. But when we own ourselves like that, it's very, very powerful. And of course, when we can perspective shift like that, very, very powerful. So two magic keys exemplified in that story.
He was the only one who had a bedroom to himself at the back end of the house.
Oh, wow. Wow.
The rest of us were all at the front end of the house. Had to share a bedroom with someone
Interesting.
else.
So the universe helped him out in terms of his
He had his own little space.
which is another profound magicalness. through his non-conformity, he got to really own and exercise and enjoy his independence of being. It's just fantastic. So, yay, go Mary's brother.
Yeah. He's a piece of work.
Fantastic. I love it. All right. Talking about magical stories. Bina, would you read this little magical story, please?
Okay, power lust. A scorpion asked a frog to carry it across a river. The frog hesitates, afraid of being stung, but the scorpion agrees.
Argues.
Argues if I did so, they would both drown. Considering this, the frog agrees. But midway across the river, the scorpion does indeed sting the frog. But why? Cries the frog. Because it's my nature, the scorpion replies as they both drown.
Read it again.
Okay.
I love it. I just want to hear it again.
A scorpion asks a frog to carry it across a river. The frog hesitates, afraid of being stung. But the scorpion argues if it did so, they would both drown. Considering this, the frog agrees, but midway across the river, the scorpion does indeed sting the frog. But why? Cries the frog. Because it's my nature. The scorpion replies as they both drown.
That's huge. So when we kind of look at this and look at the quote in this subsection called power lust, to understand that for some, they have such a lust for power that it becomes their nature, and they can do profoundly self-defeating things, even though they might argue to the contrary. So in this quote, like in Mary's story, there's lots going on, right? It's not just a story about saying one thing and doing another, being a hypocrite, in other words. It's a story about going against your own nature in a sense, but also acting with your nature, because it's not in the nature of the scorpion to be suicidal, but yet it does commit suicide in a sense, but not directly. But it acts profoundly foolish because its intelligence has become subservient to a misbelief, and that misbelief is power lust, right? So when we look at this from the context of the narcissist, we get to realize they have this belief in hierarchy, in superiority, which translates out as a power lust. And this causes them to do the most idiotic things, even though they might argue against it in the start. So in other words, really too, you can't really trust them when it comes to this, because we know, and this is the point of the book, it's to get that overview perspective, to look at them from the totality, to say it doesn't really matter what they say. The frog was right to be cautious, because the frog also drowned. Okay, a frog won't really drown, but you know, it's an old fable which is peculiar that they use a frog because a frog can swim. So you know, it's a mouse really rather than a frog. But anyway, so which I left frog in there because it makes us say, when we look at fables, we have to look with discernment too, right? Because yes, somebody could say, but you know, it doesn't make any sense. The frog wouldn't have drowned. The frog would have just swum away. Okay, so be a frog way. Okay, if you are going to trust the scorpion and you do want to ride for whatever reason, maybe the frog didn't want to get his clothes wet or something.
Okay, but you know, it was stung by a scorpion.
Right. Oh, I guess so. Maybe that's why it drowned. True. Yeah. Right.
Though he knew how to swim, but still, like an impeccable person or a good intent person, know what is good, what is right, and how to save himself, but still a narcissist person, a bullshit manipulator, could cause a real harm, a real danger.
Oh yeah. And even though you may, you know, talk to them about it, they'll say no, but they're going to do it anyway.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So why? Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm saying frog makes sense here. Yes.
Yeah. No, it does actually. Yeah. I was just looking. Just my brain was in perspective shifting mode. So yeah. No, that's quite right. Yeah. Why is it petty tyrants are so insistent on power? Why bother? Why make all the effort? Why take all the risks? It's precisely because their entire life and way of being is at constant risk of exposure. As over-promoting lying frauds, they risk exposure at every turn. This is their big fear. They're monumentally insecure. All the power grabbing and acting, though, is to appease this monumental insecurity. They try to get to that point where even if they should be exposed, it wouldn't matter, because they will have the power to say, so what? And this is huge. This is huge. So we, under this heading, we mustn't forget the heading, right? So we are expanding and exploring power lust. So this is huge, that this is what they're going on anyway, right? So
Oh yeah, yep.
Right.
It's like my girlfriend's husband saying, "The cars are in my name, the house is in my name."
exactly,
Yada,
what are you going to do?
I'm the bread earner, so
Right.
if you want to divorce me, go
Exactly.
ahead, but you'll have
Right.
nothing.
Right.
You know?
I'm the chief. I'm the dictator. I'm the president. I'm the king. Whatever. I can do whatever I want. So what? That's why they have the power lust, to overcome the insecurity, so they can get to that point where they can say, so what? But here's the next point. This is their fantasy anyway. All that happens if they do actually succeed in this power consolidation is that their insecurity the insecurity of exposure is simply replaced by physical insecurity. The threat of being removed from their perch or worse. And thus, typically, paranoia is the end result. Their entire psychology is predicated on insecurity because, of course, the entire psychology, person, and personal history is built on lies and falsehoods. It's amazing how such absurd and preposterous behavior all boils down to one simple issue. In this case, insecurity. So that was our previous, one of the previous sections here. I won't scroll all the way up. So this power lust is they lust for the power to cover the insecurity. It's not necessarily that they want power in itself. Yes, they do, because they think it makes them superior.
Yeah.
But underneath it all, it's that cover up. And the irony of it is that even when they get it, it just makes them more insecure, because now they worry about losing the power and, being taken down. And if we look at dictators, they all come to sticky ends, if we take
That's why my girlfriend's husband really doesn't like to have me around a whole lot.
To make him insecure. Exactly.
Because I call him out on it whenever he, because I don't need to put up with that, personally. I'm not going to, nor do I have to. And I don't, and so I try to protect her when he gets a little bit too pushy. I'll push back a little bit.
Yes, and they can't handle that. Right.
Oh, he doesn't like it. He'll get up and he'll leave the room, or he'll find an excuse to go out and say, "Oh, I got to go get something," or "Oh, I've got an appointment with a client," that like totally made up. Yeah. Because he's not dressed for business when he goes out the door.
Right.
So it's a bunch of baloney. But but whatever, go, bye.
Yeah. The sad part of it is, and the irony of it is, it's also unnecessary. All it's because that he's living according to this profound misbelief, and all of his intelligence and his sensibility, which he does have, it's all going to serve this ridiculous belief of superiority and hierarchy and power lust and all of this nonsense.
Yeah, it's just all bad energy that he puts back.
Exactly. And this brings up this powerful little quote here: "Desperation finds desperation." Wow, that's kind of huge right there. And it doesn't just apply in this context, but just in general, So so don't be desperate. And even if you are desperate, don't be desperate.
No way.
Yeah. All right. So Mary, if you wouldn't mind reading there, please.
What price do we pay for our desperations? Likely this isn't a question we'll ask, nor will it be appropriate for most people. We can see the answer in the bullshitter. How does this relate to us? We can look at any drive or desire which we have and ask if the effort is worth the reward. All too often, it's not. All too often, we pursue goals only because of the beliefs we should.
Right, because of the mistaken belief we should.
Mistaken belief we should.
Yes. And that's the conformity. That comes back to what Bina was asking. That's very profound. That's really huge. So this is like really all too often we pursue goals only because of the mistaken belief we should. So that's the thing with conformity, that we're pursuing goals that are other people's goals. We've conformed to this idea of other stuff, and that's huge. So it's
it's
not good.
yeah. Hey, that that brings up for me being the last in the family, the last girl in the family.
Why?
My father was a big believer in that we all got an education.
Yeah.
So I am the only girl in my family, being the last one, that didn't get married at like 20, 21. I waited till I was in my 30s to get married.
Excellent. Excellent.
Instead, I went off and I went to school.
Excellent.
And my third year in college, I get a telephone call from my mother. You have to come home.
Wow.
I said, what's up with that? She said, your father, he's not well. And she said, I can't handle it alone. You have to come home.
Wow.
So I dropped out of school to help my mother with my dad.
Oh,
so that's why
man.
I say most of my adult life, I took care of somebody, whether it was my parents, my husband, somebody, I spent the majority of that's why I say I was very sheltered, because, I was, like I say, I was the only girl that didn't either go to junior college or, and then I never went back after my dad passed away.
Yeah.
I stayed with my mom. I went and got a job and just moved on with life. And years later, I kicked myself. I said, damn it, I would have been the only girl in the family to have graduated from college.
Hey, Mary, it's not too late. There are specific.
No, it's not. But, it's 61. It's 61. I don't know that the brain wants to work that
I
way.
don't care. I don't care. That's what I'm trying to say. There are specific programs set up for exactly situations like yours, where people are in a situation later in life where they just want to finish it, just for the sake of completion, just for that personal satisfaction, not because they need to use it or want to use it. No, just for that pure personal satisfaction.
Yeah.
So I would recommend doing that if it's still something that you feel you would like to have done, just to finish it, because they will help you just to finish it. You may even go back to the school. And if you were 3 years into it, you were pretty close to graduating anyway, weren't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was.
Right.
I was.
So they may just give it to you. It's quite possible. Check it out. You'll be surprised.
Yeah.
They may ask you to do something a little bit, but who knows? It doesn't matter. But typically, most schools have this program where they allow people to finish that didn't get a chance.
Yeah, but
it's very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, I just always thought it was like an anomaly in our family.
There you go.
All my brothers got their education. They, all of them. There's a lawyer in the family. There's this, that. They all have almost all of them have professional jobs. Not all of them,
except for the nonconformist, I would assume.
Correct. Yeah, right. Yeah, he's the supervisor for fleet service for a major airline.
Excellent.
And he's done that for years.
Excellent. So, and he's happy. That's the key.
He loves his job. He'll be retiring in another few years. He's getting close.
Brilliant. Yeah. So what did you study, Mary, by the way, just for curiosity's sake?
History and communications.
Brilliant. See, we're practicing communications and we are sharing your history of yourself, which is fantastic. So you see how you're applying your degree.
I had a dream of being, like the news broadcaster.
Right. Well, there you go. See, we're implementing that right now. See how things sometimes we have intents and they manifest in very peculiar ways. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just important to pay attention. It might be in a very small way, but it doesn't matter. It gets it to satisfy it. So
yeah, it was fun because the school that I went to, we had our own television station within campus and our own radio station. So
you're talking about the college, not your high school.
No, college.
Right. College. Okay. I just distinguish because, where Bina and I come from, school is just high school and junior school, and college is university or college. We don't call college school in other words.
At the college that I went to, it was back and forth like every other semester. It was either you had to do a radio program, and then the next semester it was the campus news.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. All
Yeah.
right, well, we're just continuing that tradition right here now with what we're doing. I love it. I love it. I love it. This is very exciting. It's very exciting. All right, so I just want to finish this section here real quick, and then we carry on. So just to say what we were saying, because right, if we to pursue goals of should. So if there's anything which corrupts us way more than it should, which holds a peculiar power. We
Coulda,
need
woulda, shoulda.
exactly. We needn't be enslaved by this most tricky of subtle bullshits if we maintain a constant alertness and vigil. Our remedy is to constantly ask why, both from ourselves and the world at large. The answer to why isn't always what we imagine. Often there's no reason at all, but simply the just because of should. And that's not good enough by far. And that Mary, being in a large family, and I saw this, fortunately, it wasn't such an issue in our family, or at least not overtly expressed. But, in some of my friends' families, they would say, but why? And typically they only did that once or twice. And the answer was just because.
Yeah, because I said so.
Because I said so. Exactly.
That was my dad's thing. Because I said so.
That's what I figured. That's
and
what I
does
figured.
that mean?
Right. So no, that's not good enough by far. I'm sorry, Dad, but it's not. Okay, you had 13 kids, but that was also your choice. So
Yeah.
you got to take
Yeah,
responsibility
yeah.
for that. You can't just have the kids and then just say, "Oh, because I said so." Nah, I'm sorry, that's not good enough.
No. It's that's why I say my mother, she was a saint.
Yeah.
Because we were also all C-sections, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she had 13 C-sections?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She
Oh my
was
God.
like a walking medical miracle. Because
it's just a miracle. Never mind a medical one.
in that day and age, and even now, they'll tell you that you shouldn't be doing that.
I know.
More than once, maybe
and
twice.
even then, it was just incredible to even survive. More than just a few, but 13. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that kind of says a lot about your dad in a lot of ways too.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if he really fully got how immense that was from my mother.
And that's the thing with hierarchy, and that what we're getting here to, it leads to a bubble awareness that can be very profound and consequential. Very profound and consequential.
Yeah. They both always said that they wanted a large family.
All right.
And for my mother, the price that she paid for that was that we were all C-sections, and somehow she survived that, and she lived to be 102.
Unbelievable.
My dad died of a massive stroke at 70.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Just amazing how things work out. It's just too incredible, just too.
Yeah. She was the rock in our family,
Oh,
I would say.
Oh, your mother's a saint. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. She was the rock. And when she passed away a few years ago, it really hit some of the family members a lot harder than others.
Right.
And I said this to one of the brothers that I talk to all the time. When I moved down here, we had gotten together right before I left. And I said to him, you know what? I said, I do not regret a single thing of the choice I'm making to leave.
Yeah.
Because I said, I've been right by Mom's side and did what I could do when I could do it. So I don't care what other people have to say and want to make me feel guilty for taking care of me. But I said, I need to take care of me.
Oh yeah.
And I said, I just want you to know it, because I know that you're there for Mom too.
Brilliant.
And I want you to know that I appreciate that you're there.
Yeah, you claimed yourself. That's fair. I remember this. Yeah. I remember we were chatting. You shared this when it happened at the time, and it was really huge, Mary. It was very profound.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
Okay. I have to go. I'm feeling a bit sleepy. So Thank you so much, Mary, for sharing all these wonderful stories.
No
It's
problem.
amazing.
It's
No
a pity.
problem,
It's a
Tina.
pity you
You have
need
a
to
lovely
go.
day.
But one thing before you go, this next quote, this comes from Stephanie. I don't think it's her own, but doesn't matter. She shared it with me. She said this to me. So just so you
Okay.
know, we shouldn't shoot on ourselves. It comes from Stephanie. So I mean, you could just hear Stephanie in that. That's why I wanted to share that. Just love Stephanie. I wish she'd join us. Actually, that'd be cool. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
See you, Bina.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
See you, Mary. See you,
Bye-bye.
sir. Bye.
Okay. So we get to this whole section on self-deception. And I think this is, it's a very long chapter, this, but there's so many deep underlying causalities to them. It's very powerful. So, So if you'd read this quote for us, please, Mary, let me highlight it here for you. I don't know if the highlighting helps or not, but anyway.
Bullshitters are peculiar conformists. They subscribe to should because this, they believe, is what others want to see and hear, and what will get them approval and attention.
Right. That's the thing. They are peculiar conformists. They don't realize it. They just think they're special, and they all, I'm special. That's their whole deal. Special implies you're not a conformist, but they're totally conformist, but they're this peculiar conformity. They subscribe to should because they believe this is what others want to see and hear and what get them approval and attention. And they don't realize it. They're in this bubble that they are living completely. And it's underneath the heading here. I mean, the quote is going into the subsection of self-deception. So that's the point of it.
Yeah, I believe I said it before. My girlfriend's husband, he has really become his father.
Oh, interesting. His father's like that?
Yeah.
That's sad.
Who was the biggest narcissist and bullshitter that you'd ever want to meet in your life, and only he was important. It was another one of those like hierarchy situations, but in a much smaller family.
Right.
But that's how, and he'd gotten a divorce from the wife, so my girlfriend's husband grew up really with his mom for the longest time,
interesting.
who had her own issues.
Right.
So, it turned out to be his way of fighting back against it.
Right.
And growing up, because we all grew up together. Growing up, he was like, he hated his father, couldn't stand him, tried to take a different path. Well, he ended up basically taking the same path his father took.
Right. That's fascinating that he's become what he hates.
Yeah.
That's very sad.
I've said it to him before. Like, you hated your father so much for who he was and what he was, and I said, you've become him. Why?
What did he say to that?
Oh no, I'm not. Right away. It's like, no, I'm not. Like he,
right. So hold that right there, because that's what we're on. We're on this section of self-deception, and you see how it's bringing out the stories here now. It's coming intuitively, right? So I want to just right there on your friend's husband, right? On him, on the self-deception that he said, "Oh no, I'm not." That he hasn't become his father the way he has. It all boils down to the simple accumulation of lies. There's self-lies. How great they are, how wonderful, how deserving, how competent, how important, etc., etc. All the ego lies. Their self-lies are also the lies they tell others. So they create these lies about themselves, and sometimes they inadvertently reveal their lives. Then their insecurity just escalates. So this makes them escalate the bullshit and lies to cover up, and on it snowballs. For this mindset, they don't want to face the awful truth like most do, and deal with it and change. Oh no, they refuse. So they can't stop. They carry on trying to cover it all up. Hence their massive insecurity and incredible self-deception.
Yeah.
This is what's happening with your friend's husband, right? Bullshitters are all bluster and go, a self-important show, a fake. Nothing is really real, merely a self-created phony persona resulting from immersion in a superiority paradigm, a perfect pawn. Those who manipulate are also easily maneuvered. Superiority complexes are born out of inferiority complexes. Money, status, and position don't buy confidence. It just makes for a bigger bully. These never truly satisfy their base insecurity, a big problem. Your basic homegrown chip on the shoulder looking to validate itself. But only integrity can do that, not bullshit and lies. And that's what's lacking with him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No
Yeah,
integrity.
exactly.
Right. And
None.
also, he's been corrupted by what he saw as the positives of his father. I'm assuming his father had some sort of success in life in a general sense,
Oh
or
yeah.
not?
Yeah. Yep.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's the thing.
Financially very successful. You know,
Exactly.
married when he got a divorce from the mother, married a much younger woman,
Right.
had another son who grew up in an entirely different way
Ah, wow.
because dad had the money.
Right.
So, you know.
Right, right. But that's the thing, though. So he doesn't like the father, denies being the father, but yet he follows in the father's footsteps. Why? Because of the corruption of this belief and the idea of that the superiority paradigm. In essence, he never unhooked from it. He bought into it, like with the money, the success, the status. He loved all of that, but he doesn't realize that to get that, because it sounds like he's pursuing that in his own life. He's quite successful too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But
Yep.
he pays this in,
He did exactly what his father did.
right,
You
and
know?
he's paying the price for it in being a shit like his father.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's amazing to me that, it's like you grow up actually despising the person that created all of this havoc in your life.
And yet
And then
you can live with right.
And then you become that person and think that it's okay to come up with all kinds of excuses for why.
Right.
That it's
They live in this, that's the subsection we're on, self-deception. They live in this constant, perpetual self-deception. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
So
you think you'd want to own who you really are.
Right,
You know?
right. So you want to read this this quote, Mary, or if you don't, that's cool. I don't know if you want to read. I'm just asking, but I don't want to presume that you want to. If you don't feel like it, just say no worries, and I'll just read it. No worries.
Well, actually, why don't you go ahead? Because my eyes are getting tired.
Right. That's why I asked also. I wasn't sure. So okay.
Yeah.
The lack of ability and or desire to think past the immediate and obvious surface perception is integral to the externally influenced persona. The externally influenced persona isn't the original content creator of themselves, their character, their personality, and their self-worth. So this is this guy. He's externally created. He's externally influenced, not from inside.
Oh yeah, honestly, like if somebody that doesn't know him would meet him, they would think he is the most polite.
Correct.
Just
right.
what a wonderful guy. He's he's so generous. He's so this. He's so that. But they don't see that flip side of the coin of how he acts at home.
Right.
And they don't see how he treats the people that work for him.
Yeah.
Which is another ball of wax.
Right.
If something goes wrong, he's always blaming it on somebody else
around
absolutely.
Him. Right. We'll get to much of that, especially this discrepancy between what they really are and what they push to the outside, and learning to see past the facade. Because that's the thing. Yeah. It does connect to the self-deception. Because they are such masters at self-deception, they become masters at deceiving others also.
Yeah, it's a huge facade of phoniness. That's all it is.
Exactly. Once we learn to self-deceive, what a web of lies we weave. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Once we learn to self-deceive, what a web of lies we weave. Such penalties await those who fall into this trap. Much like our physical body can become out of sorts by the smallest influence, so too the inner self is finely balanced. Each distortion in the internal world needs to use energy from somewhere else to maintain the balance. Energy which is much better used elsewhere. Energy which is now unproductive. Even worse, these distortions have a trickle-down effect, disrupting our system in unforeseen ways. If ever we've messed with a computer system and seen what trouble even small, seemingly insignificant changes can cause. Let this be a warning. Inner self-deception has the same effect. We always pay a price, but aren't always able to notice the effect directly. Always, these choices trade off some perceived short-term benefit for a long-term detriment, a trade-off which compromises our integrity, much like a ship whose hull integrity has been compromised. Disregard for the sanctity of our inner integrity leads to a slow sinking. And that's what they don't realize, that they, when they do, like your friend, he's slowly sinking. He's just sinking all the time, right?
Yeah. And I think I've said this before. He's the biggest hypochondriac.
Right.
Which then becomes another excuse for him.
Right.
When like the pressure is getting too hot, too heavy at work, or
Right.
he wants somebody to feel bad for him, whatever, that all of a sudden he comes up with some kind of mystery illness that nobody can figure out. He's been, and that this is the truth. He's been to a major hospital in New England that have like the brightest group of people you could ever want to meet in your life. They can find anything wrong with you.
Why?
He spent almost a week up there coming up with, this symptom, that symptom.
Wow.
They could not find a single thing wrong with him.
So he went to House, and then House and his team couldn't find what was wrong with him.
Yeah, they couldn't find a single thing wrong with him. And then he blew up. Oh, you people don't know what you're talking about. Wow. I'm out of here.
Of course. Wow, yep. He's really, that's really, really, really deep into the whole thing. Now, look at the hypochondria as a symptom of the holes in his integrity. He knows he's full of holes. He knows there is something wrong with him. He's just trying to make it physical, not psychological, not mental.
Right. Spiritual. When it's even been suggested to him that he go and speak to somebody, oh no, there's nothing wrong with me. It's you. Right. You're the one who needs to. You're the one who needs a shrink, not me. It's like wild.
He doesn't want to face the awful truth. He doesn't want to face the awful truth. Yeah, I Brilliant, Ryan. That's awesome, man. Hello, glad to see you back. Bina had to leave, and you came back, so all perfect.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic. All right, so we were just talking. The section here we were reading through was self-deception, and we were just saying how one of the underlying causes of them is this profound self-deception. And in like this friend of Mary's now, a friend's husband. He's this massive hypochondriac. She was saying he even went to this, like world-renowned hospital. I'm assuming it's world-renowned hospital because there's a bunch of them in New England.
Yeah.
This like super medical place.
Brain trust.
Right.
It's a brain trust.
And they checked him out, like House, the House and his team, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. But it's the self-deception because, of course, there is lots of shit wrong with him, but it's not physical. But he's trying to make it physical, and that's his deception. So it's really powerful to understand.
Yeah, and even the mention of it that it's something psychologically wrong, he's not hearing it. He doesn't want it. He's not knowing about that.
No, can't face the awful truth. That's the other key. When we realize that facing and dealing with the awful truth, why it's so powerful. Because here's the case of this guy. And Mary was saying his father was this big, massive narcissist. And he doesn't like his father. And yet he's become his father. And Mary even said it to him. And he said, no, I'm not. The self-deception, it's unbelievably powerful. It's so huge. It's just massive. But, Mary, there is a part of him, of course, that does know the truth, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
He's just not going to admit it to anyone that's even remotely close to him.
Right. All right, so let's look at origins. Understanding is recognizing. Yeah, very simple little quote there, but that's quite powerful, just to realize that understanding is recognizing. Because recognizing means when we understand, recognize means that we're already familiar with it. And when we truly get into understanding, we recognize because there's some measure of familiarity with ourselves. So when we truly understand another, it's when we own and acknowledge that little bit of it that we see in ourselves, and it's that connectivity. So understanding is also not just recognizing, but connectivity. It's part of self-awareness. It's very powerful.
Yeah, well, it's part of change too. If you
Yeah.
can't understand and recognize it, how are you going to change anything about it?
Exactly. All right, you're just in time to read some more, Ryan, unless you're taking notes.
Yeah, just 1 second.
No, we got all the time we need. No worries, man. There's never a rush. The notes are very important. So I would encourage that, Mary, to get into the habit of taking notes, because we have these profound realizations as we go through stuff, and we believe that they are going to be with us forever, but we tend to forget them. Realizations come and go. That's why the notes are very important, so we can come back to them. It's very, very powerful, very important. All right, since you're eating as well, I'll read. No, you go ahead, Ryan. No problem. Yeah.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, before we read, if you want to hear about that little event that just happened.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's take a whole pause from this then. Okay, no problem. You know what, Ryan? 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Yeah, let me just finish this section so we can end on this is the end of chapter 3, and then we'll stop the book reading and say, okay, we go into your story. All right.
Okay, I'll read that. I'll read it.
So we're on origins here.
Okay.
So go ahead.
We must be careful in assuming the high-profile examples of bullshitter, manipulator, narcissist, which we see so intimately in today's ever-present media. Don't fool us into thinking this psychology is only found among the power-hungry and super greedy. It isn't only found in places of power and wealth. The sad truth is, this persona can be found everywhere, at every level of society.
Keep going.
Okay. We simply need to remind ourselves the famous examples started in someone's family, as someone's neighbor and friend. Bullshitters only become more noticeable as their confidence grows, but the underlying psychology remains the same, no matter how muted it may be in the beginning stages. One of their deepest drives is to attain some sort of external validation. Once they believe they've attained this proof, their narcissism takes over, now validated, and the compounding shitball of their preposterousness is unleashed. Keep going?
Yeah, one more paragraph, yeah.
Paying attention to how the underlying causality of bullshitters, manipulators, and narcissists starts in those we know in our everyday lives, and how those famous examples are simply exaggerations of what we encounter, is most helpful when it comes to recognizing these individuals before they become extreme.
That's the power. See, now Mary, in the sharing of this person that she knows, is recognizing this person before they're already fairly extreme, but before they become empowered, through external validation. Well, this person is successful in their business, and that empowers them. So they're kind of already at that stage. But when we recognize that these people start in our everyday lives, and that if we're not a part of condoning their behavior, then we aren't complicit in them becoming the exaggerations and the distortions that they can become. So it's very powerful. That's why this little section is called Origins, because the next quote here is, bullshit destroys lives. Hello, Donna. It's just magical to have you here. Brilliant. So I just want to finish this real quick, because this is the last part of this. So our most earnest intent with this book is to make sure you, our reader, you personally, don't suffer needlessly as a result of a bullshitter or a bullshit manipulator narcissist in your personal life. We dearly wish you find some assistance here when it comes to empowering yourself to recognize and deal with bullshit. We see the resolutions to the problems of the world starting with you, the individual, at that personal and local level. If we each, in our small way, develop that discernment which leads to the awareness and understanding of bullshit, we prevent this corruption on the world from spreading and growing, weeding it out at the source and improving the lives of good persons like yourself in the process. So that's the end of that chapter, and that's really a powerful, it's kind of a personal statement from Olivia and I, and it's especially Olivia. It's her most profound intent that people don't need to suffer from bullshit manipulator narcissists, and that they can recognize them and get out of that, or not even get into it in the first place. So not only is it to prevent your own suffering, but also when we do recognize that, we also now don't empower those people, because we are saying, hey, I'm not complicit to your nonsense, and I'm not going to condone it. I'm not a part of it, and that's it. So we don't allow the system to perpetuate and just become something like we said in the beginning of the book, where people, oh, it's just BS, it's just bullshit, and they kind of write it off as being nothing. No, it's very profound. Bullshit is a big deal, and that's why the first chapter is called "Bullshit is a Big Deal," because it's deception, and we can't just condone it. So it's very important to understand.
Yeah, my friend's husband, they have 2 daughters, and the oldest one, she most recently, I want to say within like the last couple of years, because of situations with her dad, because she has her own family now, she said to her father one day, she said, you know what, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm not putting up with how you treat mom, and I'm not subjecting my girls to seeing you do that.
Yes.
So you won't see them until you stop.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Wow. Magical. Magical.
Yeah. Because, and she's a school teacher, and her 2 girls, they're one of them is 6 and the other one is or 7. One of them is 7 and the other one is 5. So, they're still pretty young,
right.
But they're
but she's
very
taking a
bright.
stand. Right.
Yeah, they're very bright little girls, and they pick up on it, and
right.
and they'll say, "What's wrong with Poppy?"
Right. Wow.
Because that's what they call him.
Right.
Like, what's wrong with him? Why's Poppy being mean? Or why did
Yeah.
Poppy say that?
Wow.
They're smart enough to get that the things that he's saying are off.
Right.
So that's why she finally said, you know what? I'm not going to subject my girls to this, because they recognize it.
Right. And you can't bullshit them and says, oh, no, it's nothing. It's just puppy being puppy. Because then it's like, man, you just perpetuate that cycle. So it's a tricky problem to deal with sometimes. It takes some courage. But, we have to make that stand and say, it doesn't mean that you have to be rude and mean in return. But like your friend's daughter just said, I'm not going to, if you want to see them, she just removed them from the situation, which is quite ideal, So that's our remedy for the most part. It's not associated.
She just said, I'm not going to subject my girls to that. If you start behaving badly, I'm leaving. That's
and it comes later in the book. We talk about the black hole psychology, and that's the only way to deal with a black hole is to not interact with it. That's the only way to deal with it. So it's very powerful. So that's pretty magical right there. So right there, it's a good point. Just that to stop for today on the reading, but we're going to carry on.
Got to hear Ryan's story.
Right. So I just want to say hello to Donna. I'm just seeing Donna's shoulder, but hello, Donna's shoulder. Hello, Donna. Hello. I'm just glad you could join.
Hi, Donna.
So very cool.
Hi, Mary.
So we've been just chatting on the book, and we had some chat before we got started, and then I don't know, Ryan went away, or he's saying something happened. I don't know if it was earlier or when you were away, but anyway, Ryan's got a story for us. So go ahead, Ryan.
Just something interesting. I got pulled away for a little bit. There was a little event that happened, and I'll explain what it is. But then when I came back from that, we when Bina was here earlier, we went over a little bitty section that I read.
Right.
Before I had to take Pierce to golf. Well, what's interesting is on the way back from taking him to golf, I had a takeaway on the whole thing, which I didn't have before. It's like the event happened, and then we talked about was what that event was about.
Wow. So there was like a direct manifestation, like came about.
The event, then we talked about it, and then I got the takeaway later on after like
wow.
I was talking to Janelle about like what we were talking about, and then this whole event.
So go ahead.
Take away like as I'm coming back here now.
Right.
And I was like, yes.
Wow. So what happened?
So this event's been going on for a few weeks. It's kind of a culmination of things. But I bought this vehicle, and for work, it had a squeaky serpentine belt. Okay. And it was really annoying. You know, it just squeaks. You know, if you have a vehicle,
Yeah.
it's just really annoying, and it just gets on your nerve. So I was trying to figure out what it was, and I was pretty sure I figured out what it was, right? But then I'm like, well, I'm not sure. Let me ask my neighbor. So the guy that lives next door to me, he works on vehicles all the time, and I'm like, hey, what do you think? And I let him diagnose it, right? And he's like, well, I think it's this. And I'm like, okay. So I fixed what he said, and it did a little bit of help, but not really. It kept getting worse. And then I went to a guy at AutoZone, and I asked him, what do you think? And then I did what he said, and it got worse. And then I asked O'Reilly's. No, listen. I asked the guy at O'Reilly's. I'm like, oh, he's a car guy. He'll know. What do you think? He's like, do this. And I did that, and it got worse. So this is what's interesting. Today, when I got pulled away, last night, check this out. Last night, I told my neighbor, I said, hey, I know what's wrong with it. And this is exactly what I thought was wrong with it the very first time.
Wow.
I doubted myself, and I asked other people. I said, I know what's wrong with it. I said, I knew this right from the beginning. I said, but now I've spent all this money and time for nothing because I've listened to other people.
Wow.
Listened to myself.
Because you doubted yourself, not because you listened to other people.
Yes. So check it out. This is what's cool about this whole thing. I was a little bit aggravated that I had to leave because last night I told my neighbor, I'm like, I know what it is. I figured it out. Boom. He, on his own accord, called his friend, a mechanic, and had him come over here today without my knowledge. I was unaware that anyone was coming over here. And he just came to our door, knocked on the door. He asked my wife, hey, I need to get to Ryan's vehicle.
Wow.
Just like, he didn't even like ask, nothing. He just like very intrusive. Hey, I need your husband's keys to his vehicle. Like what? Like this is crazy. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
So I get pulled away, and I was irritated at first because I'm like, he didn't tell me about it. He didn't ask me.
But it's still magical though.
But I'm like, as soon I was walking out the door, and I was saying, this is a gift. This is a gift.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Even though I didn't feel that way, like right away.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm really irritated. But
Wow.
anyways, so the whole gift, here's the whole gift of the whole thing. Never doubt yourself. And if you ever listen to anyone else besides yourself, you are wrong. Every fucking time. And you know why I'm mad? Because I'm mad at me. Because I always know the right answer.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
It doesn't even matter.
Right.
I always have the right answer. All the time.
Right.
All the time.
Right.
That's what and you know what the squeaky belt represents? The irritation with myself.
Yes. That's amazing.
I was irritated, not at the belt, but I was irritated with me because I know better.
Right.
Because I know the right thing to do.
Right.
I knew the right thing to do, and I doubted it.
Right.
And I've been irritated about it this whole time.
Right.
Squeaky belt is like, it's trying to get my attention, say, Ryan, quit.
Be impeccable. That's what it's trying to say. That's all it was saying. So it's not, it just to clarify here, right, Ryan, it's not that you know everything. You're talking about specifically that when you know it, right?
Exactly.
Not that you necessarily have all the answers, right?
Well,
Just to clarify.
Yeah, it's trusting your own intuition on what you believe.
That's what I'm saying. Whenever you doubt yourself and you ask for someone else's opinion, it's never going to be the right one. It's never going to be the right one.
Right.
Ever. Because how do they know what's good for you?
Exactly. Exactly. Now, doesn't mean that their opinions and their perspectives aren't valuable, because they can give you insight and perspective on yourself.
Right.
They
But in
can.
the end, you have to make use of those perspectives, not just take them for granted, which is what you did. You did make use of their perspective. So the whole incident was just a profound self-awareness incident.
Oh my
It's you
gosh.
becoming acutely aware of the necessity for you to be impeccable when it comes to trusting your own perceptions and feelings and thoughts when you have that certainty.
And the thing is, here's the sad part. Like, every time I've asked his opinion about something before or his advice, it was never good. So
Right. So there's the other part. You kept going back to a source that now in the beginning you didn't know. So it's valid to go and ask. But if you have a pattern of it already, well, all right,
and it cost me a lot of time and money and
Right.
irritation.
So
And
now I have to ask, just for my curiosity's sake, what was the cause of it?
what I already knew, it was a pulley. Okay. It was the what do you call it? The water pump pulley. So this water pump pulley, it drives the water pump, right, with the serpentine belt going around it. And when those get misaligned, they'll kind of wobble just a little tiny bit. But even if they wobble a little tiny bit, it'll make that belt just kind of hit, and it'll squeak.
Right,
So,
right. But see what I was looking for? I was looking for the abstract. There was a very slight misalignment that led to this. And that's your story. Your story, thus, from an abstract overview perspective. See, that's why I asked you to give the exact reason. It didn't matter the exact reason. I was looking for the abstract representation.
Well, I have to talk through the physical, and then I get that.
Right. Well, that's why I asked you. But I wanted to pause it right there because they're saying, there we go. We found it now. We found the underlying abstractness, which was some very tiny misalignment, which led to irritation, squeakiness, right? So when we are finding ourselves constant, we are out of alignment in some way. And where were you out of alignment? It was out of alignment in trusting and doubting yourself, right? When
And
you felt...
And it's with other stuff too.
Yes.
Because when this popped up, this problem, there was this, I was talking to you about this, there was this Bitcoin opportunity.
Right.
Or this other stuff, and, I was getting involved with these investments. Well, the investment part, that's okay. But there was other opportunities where you can share it. To make money, like like an affiliate type thing.
Right.
And I was like, kind of like, ooh, maybe that would kind of be interesting to do. And so I was getting a little bit sidetracked with that.
Right.
And this belt thing was exactly during this little time period, the past, 3 weeks, let's say 3-4 weeks. So literally, and in hindsight, this belt, this little irritation, this misalignment, it was telling me I was getting off track and I needed to redirect my focus to where it was at.
Oh, wow. Very powerful, man. Very powerful.
That is what I was focused on before, which is focusing on doing this program here and learning my legal stuff. And that's it. And I was getting sidetracked off of that.
Wow. Very powerful, man. Very powerful. And that's what I'm really enjoying, Ryan, is how you are seeing the abstract in the ordinary. And when we realize that they are one and the same, that sublime actually lives in the mundane, that's
so really crazy. It's so weird.
It's awesome. But it's fantastic too. It's really awesome. All right. So one other little point on this, Ryan. Yes, it's a point of getting out of alignment with ourselves and about doubting ourselves and not trusting ourselves. That's the underlying lesson. And when we look at this from a context of impeccability, we could say, yeah, but wouldn't that kind of lead to arrogance? It could. But here's the point. Instead of asking your neighbor what was wrong, you could have gone to your neighbor to get a perspective on what you believed was wrong and checked yourself, which that's the way we can balance out the arrogance. Doesn't mean that you're not trusting yourself, but it doesn't mean that we can't check ourselves and test our perceptions. Because even though I trust myself, it doesn't mean that I can't be wrong. That can happen. But it's to trust ourselves, knowing that we can be wrong. Doesn't matter.
Well, that's my intention. That was my intention.
Exactly.
It's just the fact that I was trying to get another perspective, and I got it.
Right.
But I still am like, I should, you know what I mean? I should have just went with what I
Right,
felt.
right, right, right. Yeah, but so we learn, man. So we learn. I don't know. I just very,
Literally,
it's very
now
magic.
that I'm learning about this impeccable stuff, like
Yeah.
I'm seeing like, oh wait, when you're not impeccable,
Right.
there's like consequences.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. That's the I think lack of impeccability is profoundly consequential.
Mhm.
Profoundly consequential. I can't emphasize enough how radically important that is.
And it can be either swing to the negative side or the positive side.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
I'd rather it be on the positive side.
Yes, yes. And on that note, that is a magical story just to represent and illustrate and everything too. And you know, self-importance in the narcissist, it's one of their big downfalls. But the inverse of self-importance, in other words, not trusting ourselves, it's a
Yeah.
kind of a peculiar self-importance in a way also. And we have to understand that too. And when we do that, it's very powerful. Very, very powerful.
It just, man.
So much to learn from it. So much to learn from it.
I mean, it's a gift though. You see?
Oh, it's a fantastic capital G gift. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, for me to be able to see that, like, and recognize that, you know, that's good because now I'm gonna, you know, moving forward, I will be more impeccable because I recognize
Right.
where I'm not being.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That way.
Exactly. And so that's the point of it. So it's not the point of like, I should have, no, shift the perspective on the entire incident and say, what a profound gift, because it not only made you realize about self-trust and not doubting yourself, but it also made you aware of the critical importance of impeccability. So huge.
I know. Yeah, it's that much more important now.
Why?
I mean, just because I see the impact, like it was a physical reality that happened. You know, when it's something that happens to you and you're experiencing it, it's totally different, you know, than just talking about it.
Exactly. And like you said, you need that physical, or you like it. I don't think you need it, but you like it. And so when you get that physical exemplification and the manifestation of the lesson for you, that's when it sticks with you, right?
Right. And you know what? That's probably why I've been through a lot of rough, hard times in my life.
Right.
Because I actually want to know stuff.
Exactly.
So
it's how you.
But I wasn't aware
Right.
that, to actually know something, you can't just read about it.
Right. You got to live it. The application. Without application, it's all meaningless. And this is application for you of what you are, what you know you are, what you would like to be, what you're learning. And it's the deliberate awareness of Ryanness, in other words. It's unbelievably huge, Ryan. Unbelievably huge.
Just like when I was into religion heavy in Christianity, I was reading about Jesus and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I really want to be more like that.
There you go. Application.
But guess what? Then I had to go through a lot of shitty circumstances to learn how to be like that.
Right. And you're still learning to be like that.
Sometimes the struggles are valuable.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, like Jesus, he went through false accusations from close friends and family, you know, and all, you know, backstabbing. And I went through all that.
Right. We learn, man. We learn. You set an intent, Ryan. You set an intent, and that intent manifested. We have to be very, very, very.
I wasn't aware that I did that.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Now that you are, we have to be exceedingly judicious and careful and deliberate and precise about our intents. It's very important.
Careful what you wish for. You just might get it.
Exactly. Yep. On that note, Ryan, I just, it's coming up to 12. Just seems like a good note to end it on. So just cool. You know, I mean, unless you had something more to add, I'm just saying.
That was it.
Donna, did you have anything that you wanted to say in particular, or are you just coming to join us?
Nope, nothing to say particular. Thank you, Ryan. That was good. That was a
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Illuminating. Illuminating.
Yes, it was
My
illuminating.
suffering is everyone else's benefit. There you go.
There you go.
Illuminating. Illuminating.
We're
That's
right
always a
there
good
with
thing.
you, though.
But that's the
Right.
magic of sharing, Ryan, because when you tell the story, you get that perspective on it for yourself that consolidates it and makes it your own even more so. It's that consolidation that's so powerful when we share. So when we realize that this sharing, okay, if others benefit, that's a bonus. But the sharing, it's very profound for consolidating what we've learned. It's huge. It's really, really huge. It's a very big deal. So yeah, sharing is power, man. Sharing is a magical, profound power. All right, brilliant. So on that there, I love it. I love it. Most excellent. I love these readings, man. And next week, Ryan, I'll shift it back to 9 o'clock so that your time works out better. So yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, if I wake up earlier, we can even go earlier. But just to schedule it for Facebook. So I don't know why 10 was the time, but it can just as well be 9. It doesn't matter. So we'll do that next week at 9 o'clock then. So fantastic, man. Fantastic. All right. So I'm ending it all. And
Bye.
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you, Ryan. Bye-bye,
Thanks,
Mary. Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thank you. I love it when you guys come. It's just most excellent. So let me go and check you on Facebook. Brilliant. Oh, are you still on, Mary? Hang on 1 second.
Yeah. I don't.
Oh, it's okay. Just click end meeting. So it's good that you know how to do this. So on your thing somewhere there
Yeah,
should be
there
a-
it is.
Okay. All right. End meeting for